Mr. Cravens, we have an attendee, Mr. Sennard, that has raised his hand.
Okay. Looks like we've got Janice, so we've reached quorum. So we'll get started here in just a minute.
Okay.
Mr. Pennington just logged into PrimeGov.
I figured he was working his way there. Okay, well, I've got 1:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission for Thursday, May the 13th. This meeting, of course, is being held by video conference in accordance with state statute. And I have a few announcements to begin here at the outset of the meeting. If the video conference is disconnected at any time during the meeting shall be stopped and reconvened once the audio connection has been restored. If communications are unable to be restored within 30 minutes, items remaining for consideration will be continued to the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, which is set for May 27th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. That meeting is also scheduled to be held by video conference. It's worth noting at this point, in case an item for today is continued beyond that meeting, beginning with our meetings on June the 10th, 2021, our meetings are planned to be back in person. So this meeting is virtual. Our next meeting on the 27th of May is virtual. Our next meeting beyond that is planned to be held in person. So just please keep an eye on the agenda and the online materials if your item is continued for any changes to how that meeting may be conducted based on evolving circumstances. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located at okc.gov. You can also contact city staff if you have questions regarding locating or accessing those documents at 405-297-2623. Again, that's 405-297-2623. For anyone wishing to speak about an item or to speak under citizens to be heard, hopefully you've previously notified our staff folks by email or by telephone or by signing up online. I do have a list of people who have previously asked to speak, and at the appropriate time, I'll call on those folks. I'll also ask folks to raise their hand at specific times if they want to comment on a particular item. And so I'll allow for public comment at the end or kind of during the discussion of each agenda item. If you call in after your item has been heard, you will be allowed to be heard under citizens to be heard at the end of today's agenda. And speakers will be allowed for 5 minutes to comment, or up to 5 minutes. I do reserve the right to limit comments if it's redundant, or if we've heard the comments before, or if I feel like the commission has the information that they need for us to deliberate and discuss the item and for our purposes. When you are called upon to unmute your phone, you press *6. To raise your hand, you press *9. So *9 tells me you want to speak, and *6 when I call your name. If you're on your computer, Alt-Y will raise your hand, and the space bar is what you use to mute or unmute. I do ask that all participants keep their lines on mute until they're recognized to speak. If I'm getting background noise or feedback from somebody, I'm going to mute you so we can keep the meeting moving. For anyone wishing to speak today, including commission members, please remember to identify yourself as you begin to speak. I do need name and addresses if you're signing up to speak on a matter. And there'll be a roll call every 15 minutes if members are not present. And just as a reminder to commissioners, we've each agreed to participate by video conference. So if you are going to step away from your computer for any reason, just be sure and alert me, even if you're interrupting me, that you're stepping away. I don't want it to be confused that you're recusing yourself from an item. If you need to step away, it's totally fine. Just do that. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. The first item on today's agenda is the receipt of the minutes from the April 22nd, 2021 meeting. If there's no discussion on those minutes from commissioners, I'll take a motion to receive them.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move that we receive the minutes from the April 22nd meeting.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, hopefully. Yep, Commissioner Privet has seconded that motion. So I have a motion and a second to receive the minutes. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, you voice voting with us?
Yes, I am, and enthusiastically voting yes on this, please.
Nothing like an enthusiastic vote to receive minutes. So noted. I believe all votes should be cast.
Mr. Chairman, for some reason, my PrimeGov voting thing is not coming up, so I'll vote yes.
Okay. My screen is frozen as well. Paula or someone from staff, is it working on your side?
Yes, I said that you voted yes.
Yep, it's not showing me the result screen. It shows me status waiting.
Okay, I'm waiting on Commissioner Highsmith.
I voted yay over here. It says I voted.
Gotcha.
There we go. And those minutes are received. Next item on the agenda today are continuance requests. We had some uncontested requests for continuance on our printed agenda. Mr. Butler, you want to read those for us?
Yes, item 25 is SPUD 1312, request to defer to May 27th. Item 26, case C7283, defer to May 27th as well. Item 27, PUD 1786, defer to July 8th. And item 28, case number C7230, request to defer to July 8th also.
Okay. Is there anyone who wanted to be heard on those items today? Okay. If not, I will take a motion on the items.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move that the uncontested continuance requests be granted as read.
Okay. I have a motion and I'll take the second on PrimeGov. That motion was seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
And Commissioner Powers, let me know if you need a voice vote as well.
I guess I will. My screen is not showing me a voting thing at all. I have the agenda up, but
Well, did you guys get my vote this time?
No, I did not.
so I vote yes.
I voted yay.
Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Highsmith, I think it makes some sense. We'll just voice vote those. Just so Paul was aware of how we're voting and what's moving it along. I do show that those continuance requests were approved unanimously. So next item on the agenda, a new request. I know we have a number of new requests as well. Mr. Butler, you want to read those for us?
Yes, we have item 16, case SPUD 1299, request to withdraw. Item 17, SPUD 1301, request to continue to May 27th. Item 21, PUD 1814, request to continue to May 27th. And item 23, case PC 10731, request to continue to June 10th.
Okay. Is there anybody that wanted to be heard on any of those items? I guess out of an abundance of caution, Jerry Senard, your hand is raised. It's been raised since before the meeting started. I'm not sure if you have something you want to comment on or if it's up accidentally. If you'd like to comment on something very quickly here, if it pertains to what we're talking about, you can use either the space bar or *6. Okay, hands down. Excellent. If there's no discussion, then I'll take a motion on the continuance items as read.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move that we grant the continuance requests as read.
Okay, I'll take the second on PrimeGov. That motion was seconded by Commissioner Privet. So I have a motion and a second to approve the continuance request as read. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Powers
Yes, please.
and Commissioner Highsmith?
Yep.
That should be all the votes. And those continuance items are approved for as well. Next item on today's agenda is the consent dockets. Mr. Butler, you're going to read those items, and I know we already have one item we need to pull because of a last-minute protest.
Okay, we have 4 items. The first one, item 1, PC 10728, application to rezone 5725 South Hiawassee Road from AA to RA single family. Item 2, PC 10727, application to rezone 4700 North Anderson Road from R1 to AA. Item 3, PC 10730, application to rezone 8729 West Wilshire Boulevard from R1 to AA. And item 4, case C7294, final plat of Northwood Village, section 3, located north of Northwest Expressway and east of North Cemetery Road.
Got it. Thank you. I know item number 1, the applicant's here, and that's the one we received kind of a last-minute protest on. So let's go ahead and remove that from the consent agenda. We'll move that to items requiring separate vote. It'll be our first item heard today. With that item removed, is there any further discussion on any of the consent items, read items 2, 3, or 4? I have no hands raised. So if there's no discussion from commissioners, I think we can take a motion on those.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move that we approve of the consent docket as amended.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the consent docket items 2, 3, and 4, excluding item 1. I'll take the second on PrimeGov.
I'm trying to get there. I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Mr. Chair, I just want to let you know Commissioner Clare is signed in now.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Commissioner Clare.
Okay.
Okay, and those consent items, that recommendation to approve those was seconded by Commissioner Highsmith. So I do have a motion in a second to approve items 2, 3, and 4 on today's agenda. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Powers?
Mr. Chairman, I did vote yes. I have my thing up and running now, so
Oh, good.
I voted
Okay.
online.
Great. Commissioner Highsmith?
It's also on.
Well, it let me second it, so I'm wondering now if it's taking my vote as well.
It is. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent. We were all just doing a little buffering. Those items are approved. Next item on today's agenda, we'll start our items requiring separate vote. Item number 1 was pulled from the consent docket, so we'll start there. Mr. Butler?
This is case PC 10728, application to rezone 5725 South Hiawassee Road from AA to RA.
Okay. And is the applicant present?
She is. I'm here.
Ms. Myers, if you would start out by giving us your name and address for the record, please, and then tell us about this application.
B. Diane Myers, and my current home address is 11187 Northeast 10th Street, Choctaw, Oklahoma.
Okay.
The reason for the application is I inherited some property jointly with my little sister from my dad, who passed away in June. Our family owns most of that property along that stretch of road there. She lives next door and my brother lives further over. And because we acquired this jointly, my sister and I, we cut it in half. It previously was 2 parcels. It was an acre, a piece with 2 acres and then a piece with 5 acres or 4 point something acres. Anyway, it was less than, both pieces were less than 5 acres. So we put them together and split them in half. And the reason I wanted it rezoned is so that I could put a house on it, just my own house, just for my own personal use. I understand from the gentleman that I spoke with that I probably should have requested a different zoning, one that just said less than 5 acres. Because I certainly don't want it cut up into 1 acre lots. I simply want to live there next to my family. And that is the reason for the application.
Got it. Thank you so much. Commissioner Privet, this is your ward, sir. Do you have questions or concerns on this from the applicant? It was on the consent docket initially, and I'm assuming you saw the last minute protest letter that came across via email, which was sent to us from staff.
I did, and from what the applicant says, sounds to me like it's not relevant. So, pretty cut and dry to me.
Okay, let's see if we've got anybody with us that wants to be heard on this other than the letter we received in protest.
Yep.
So if you're joining us today and you want to be heard on PC 10728, this is your opportunity to do it. *9 or Alt-Y on your computer, *9 on your phone. And I do not have anybody with their hand raised yet, but I'll just pause a moment. Okay. Seeing none, I don't have any objection to it. If there's no other discussion from commissioners and you don't have a problem, Commissioner Privet, I think we're probably ready.
Okay. I'll move to recommend approval of case number PC 10728 to City Council.
I have a motion and I'll take the second on PrimeGov, which was
good switch.
There we go. Seconded by Commissioner Privet. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10728. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. All votes should be cast. Oh, and that application is approved unanimously. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ms. Myers.
Could I ask a question though?
Sure.
Should I certainly wouldn't want the area to end up being cut up into 1 acre lots because mine is or is zoned to do that. Should I change my application or amend it to be something where it's a larger lot, where it needs to be a larger lot? Or
No.
just leave it the way it is?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question here? It was one I had intended to ask, but bit my tongue. Is this piece of property a candidate for a lot split? Would it be possible for her to achieve her purposes through lot split? And that's a question for staff.
Being zoned RA, excuse me, AA, no, it does not have minimum 5 acres that's required.
Okay, so that was my one thought about how it might be done otherwise.
Yeah.
So
Ms. Myers, as I told you at the outset, there's not a great way to do these kinds of applications the way that our code kind of carves them up. I think you went about it the right way. I guess what I would tell you, this and your neighbors, is that each application's got to stand on its own. We're going to review them all individually. I think the circumstances of yours are pretty straightforward, which is why it was on the consent agenda and why it was fairly easy to get approved. That would not necessarily be the case for another applicant seeking to do the same thing with a larger tract. So
okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
and so I
received notice to the property owner there too, if it was within 300 feet of you.
Yes. Okay. And so am I finished here?
Yes, you are. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda today is item number 5, SPUD 1308.
Yes, that's an application to rezone 824 Northwest 68th Street from R1 to SPUD 1308.
Okay. Is the applicant with us today?
Yeah, Tim Johnson here on behalf of the applicant. 1 East Sheridan, Suite 200, Oklahoma City, 73104. So most of you are familiar with the Ballet of Oklahoma. It took over the old exercise building that was part of the AEP Petroleum Company. And over time, they have acquired 3 lots adjacent to the property, and they're in the process of acquiring a 4th, the dwelling unit between the current building and the just west of the little leg that goes south there on the parking. And what we're showing here is an interim use as a parking lot. The SPUD allows for office uses in conjunction with the valet and parking. So their intent initially is to control these lots, improve them for parking, put in the sidewalks as shown, create a connection from this parking area to the current valet building, and the existing dwelling unit is being considered by the valet to be part of a house that they would rent for out-of-town artists that would come in to perform. And so pretty straightforward. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This is Commissioner Powers' word. Before I turn it over to her, one thing that I mentioned to staff today is, I don't know if the commissioners noticed this, but my packet did not include a copy of the MDS or the statements. It went right into the staff report. So I don't know if I'm the only one that applied to, but I don't have a copy of the actual document in my packet. So Commissioner Powers, I hope you got one and can walk us through this.
We don't generally get copies of the MDS, unfortunately.
Well, the overview, I mean.
I'm sorry?
I don't have the overview.
This, I think that this is a fairly straightforward application. We're all aware, I think by now, that this area is very difficult. It's transitional. There's residential uses that still exist. Some of them are much more viable than others. They're scattered, everything from warehouse, office, to serious industrial uses, to the occasional little commercial use, especially along Classen. And I think it's a difficult balance. What I like about this use is that it is kind of a soft transition, if you will, although it is for a parking lot. This practice facility doesn't generate a lot of parking. It's not going to be, a highly trafficked area. There's no real reason for any of the traffic that it does draw to circulate through the neighborhood and cause problems for the few remaining really viable residential users in this area. So I am in favor of this. I have met with the applicant and I have not heard any comments, questions, or objections from anybody in the area.
Okay. Other commissioners have thoughts on this one? I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this.
Just a quick question, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I just wanted to know, Tim, it wasn't clear from the diagram. So is there a sidewalk that actually leads to the adjacent parking lot? It didn't look like it was complete. And then is the long-term plan to connect it to the other parking lot? Just to be clear.
Only for pedestrian. And yeah, so that we only showed the sidewalk on the application tract. It is the intent of the valet to connect that. If we could go back to that last drawing. Connect the sidewalk that shows on the north and south across the lot to our to the west of the parking lot and across the and tie it into that curved bluish colored.
Mm-hmm.
That's a running trail that also was accepted as a sidewalk and a sidewalk easement as part of that development years ago. And so, yeah, it'll all connect up there.
Awesome. Thank you.
There will not be a vehicular. There would not be a vehicular connection to the parking lot, though. They've got the ornate wall there, the metal wall that they don't want to put a hole in. So they're going to make sure it's accessible on the north end and south end by sidewalks.
This is Commissioner Highsmith. The only comment I would have is a question. I don't want to play devil's advocate too hard here because I don't have a problem with the application, but I'm curious if the valet doesn't create that much traffic or need for parking, like why are we doing a parking spud here?
Well, the spud allows for other uses. We've shown it as a interim use as a parking lot because during COVID they had some performances here because they could not perform in other locations.
Okay, I was just curious.
Okay, I don't have anybody signed up to speak and no one has raised their hand. So if there's no additional discussion from commissioners, Commissioner Powers, if you're prepared to do so, I think we're ready for a motion on it.
I do move approval of this item.
Okay. I'll take the second on Prime Gov.
So I've clicked it, but it's not doing anything.
Yeah, I think it's on the staff side.
Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulty. I apologize.
It's all right. I'm glad that we're waiting on technology and not the other way around.
Absolutely.
Makes me feel like there's hope for us yet.
It should be coming. Here we go.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend approval by Commissioner Powers on SPUD 1308. That motion has been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast. And that application is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda today is item number 6, SPUD 1309. Mr. Butler.
This is an application by, to rezone 13020 West Reno Avenue from PUD 1068 to SPUD 1309.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is an SPUD that would permit a multifamily development there along Reno, west of Cemetery. Cindy, could you display the site plan, please? There you go. So the design piece of this, the site designer took great care, understanding that there was existing single family around us. We have taken care to set back off of the property line at least 40 feet. In some areas, it's as much as 100 feet from the area that is single family. And in addition, we have a significant landscape buffer around the site, anywhere where it's near residential and of course along Reno. It is required in the MDS that the trees be planted on 25-foot centers. So that should provide a nice visual buffer as well as provide a nice view from the site. So there are no TEs. It is in compatibility with the comprehensive plan. In my mind, it kind of represents a nice step down from the intense commercial on the corner and the personal storage as you get to the single family. I know Ms. Coffey is not here, but I did correspond with her via email through the week. She did send me an email voicing her support for the project. Just for purposes of your knowledge, there was an individual that submitted a protest letter. I did attempt to meet with the individual. I sent several emails and was met with a desire not to meet, citing concern as my role as an attorney. There was concern that I may be in a position to record this individual and therefore he was unwilling to meet with me. That's fine, but I believe on behalf of my client, I've done everything I can by trying to reach out and meet. I did provide the copy of that email to Chairman Cravens as well as Commissioner Coffey, just to show that we did attempt to reach out to the individual. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, there's no TEs. We believe we have designed this site in a manner to be consistent and compatible and sensitive to the area that surrounds it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Box, I've got 2 questions for you on this one. Number 1, the dumpsters, 25 feet, no way to get those to 50. I'm guessing you'd have thought of that.
That's correct. There's not, but it's worth noting where it's located. On the eastern side of the site, it's adjacent to the commercial and the personal storage.
Can we commit to that location at least?
I'm not sure if my client is on. Let me.
I'd hate for it to move, and then be kind of up against that tree line on the south because, like if I got no problem with it if we can commit to that location. And just while you're looking for that, the other thing that I had question about, staff made mention in the staff report about the placement of the drive at the eastern edge of the site could limit driveway locations for the undeveloped commercial land to the east. I looked at this land on an aerial and I totally understand their point on that. Does your client own that property?
No.
Well, that was my fear. So I'm a little concerned that we are going to have that issue because somebody's going to come in and want to develop that. And we're getting really close to the intersection right there. In fact, you can kind of see in the overlay, you can sort of see the, I don't even know what to call that. It's like the stripe yield lane as you get closer to the intersection. So.
I mean, we can certainly look at it as we move forward to city council. But I mean, if it was, what I'd say is typically if it's of such a great concern, staff will obviously make things a technical evaluation. And it wasn't here. To answer your first question, we can commit to the dumpster being as shown on the site plan along the, well, we can commit to it being on the eastern side of the site so that it's not adjacent to the single family residential.
Okay, so a
Mr.
TE
Boggs,
that's-
I'm sorry, Mr. Boggs, can you commit to it being where it is or north of there? I mean, you know, the eastern side of the site further south could be problematic. It doesn't look like there's room for it south of there. But if you can commit to it being where it is or north of there, I don't necessarily oppose that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Along the eastern
Yes.
side of the spud as shown on the site plan or north thereof.
Does that work for you, Chairman Cravens?
Yeah, I think that's fine. As long as somebody is prepared to articulate that into a motion when we get there, we need to make that a technical evaluation. And then you make a good point, Mr. Box, that they didn't include it as the TE. I think it's a fairly practical staff statement. I don't know if anybody else has feelings on that. But I wanted to at least bring it up so we could talk about it, because where that drive is shown, I mean, east of that, you're not going to get it. You're not going to be able to punch another drive in very easily. And maybe that's a net benefit to the intersection, quite frankly. But it's going to be an awfully compelling case to ask for a drive.
The proximity to the intersection, I'm trying to locate it on my Google Earth here, perhaps may not even allow for two. So it may be that this actually accomplishes a goal that.
No, that's what I mean. It prevents another curb cut being closer to the intersection.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from staff about this. I mean, there are driveway separation requirements. Clearly, there are going to be some kind of, I would think, intersection distance requirements as well. I mean, where would a driveway on that little piece end up?
More or less centrally located on the site, if they had one there at all. It's hard to say because we don't know what's happening on that corner yet.
I see.
My concern, Janice, is that I'm looking at an aerial. There's a gas station on the northwest corner there.
Right.
And if you look at the image that's on our screen, oh, there you go. You can see the curb cut for it on the south is slightly offset to the curb cut they're proposing. So right. Then if you put another curb cut in on the south side of the street, you're going to have to offset that too. So you're going to have three offsetting curb cuts pulling out just west of an intersection that's a 4-lane road. Like that's
absolutely, yes.
That's a nightmare. But you know, if there wasn't the distance, but that's what my fear was, that there was. So they're going to have a compelling argument for a curb cut, and it's going to be a real conflict point for that intersection. Mr. Box, are you still visiting with your client on this issue or trying to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to.
I see Mike Wilson's hands raised.
Mr. Wilson, you want to comment on this issue or discussion?
As a rule, since that is straight zone C3 already, the first drive on that C3 could be 120 foot from the center of cemetery over. The next drive should be about 200 foot center to center between drives. There is also a rule that they have in drive placement that with a drive directly across the street, it either needs to be in line with it or at least 75 foot, offset so that it's not, too close. So there looks like there probably could be frontage to have two drives, but it's going to be close because of that 200 foot center to center separation.
Right. Yeah.
You're not required to send.
Got it. Thank you. My suspicion is that that's why staff included in the note. I don't know why it wasn't a TE, but I'd really love to know if there's an alternative here, because we're going to get the request to give a curb cut when that corner goes to develop, and we'll have created this kind of weird anomaly here.
No, I mean, you won't get a request. To Mr. Wilson's point, whatever the code requires for separation is what that developer will have to meet. It's zone C3. You're not going to see it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. I see. So you're just saying that they pull a permit.
Yeah.
Under the
unless they want to develop it as something other than C3, which is unlikely.
Got it. Got it. Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to belabor the point. I made it. If anybody else doesn't have strong feelings about it, we can move on. But those are the two issues I had. Anybody else have anything on this? Okay. So if there's no further discussion, I need somebody to try to make a motion. Commissioner Coffey's ward, and she's not with us today.
I can try, Mr. Chairman. This is Commissioner Pennington. I move that we recommend approval of SPUD 1309 with the addition of a TE requiring that the dumpsters be placed as they are listed, as they are shown, in the site plan provided on the record, and that they be allowed to also be placed further north of that location as identified on the site plan. That is very poorly phrased, Mr. Chairman. So
no, it's perfect.
Our magicians who write the minutes will make that look better.
Yep, just for the purposes of preserving the record, the site plan as referenced is the Miles Architecture Reno Avenue multifamily illustrative site plan labeled Exhibit B1, which was included in our staff report packet and demonstrated on the recording today. With that, I do have a motion, so I'll take the second on PrimeGov, which was seconded by Commissioner Highsmith. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1309. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes should be cast. And that application is approved unanimously. Next item on the agenda today is item number 7, SPUD 1310. Mr. Butler.
This is an application to rezone 1107 Southwest 44th Street from O2 to SPUD 1310.
Yeah, again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, on behalf of the applicant. The SPUD is to allow my client to use this facility as a bookstore. It's zoned office. At the moment, what we have done through the SPUD is to allow the O2 to remain and included the additional use unit of retail. There is one TE as it relates to meeting screening requirements at the time of any new development of the site. We can agree to do that. So we would agree to TE number 1. There's no protests or any concerns that I've been made aware of. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Highsmith, this is your ward, sir, so I'll let you lead our discussion.
I didn't have any problems with the item. I've reviewed it. I didn't even feel necessary, at least based on my review, to reach out to the applicant, unless my fellow commissioners find any fault with it. I'd be ready to make a motion.
Okay. Any further discussion from commissioners on this one? Hearing none, I don't have anybody signed up to speak again, and I don't have anybody with a hand raised. So if there is no discussion, let me just double check one more time. Nope, I don't have any hands raised. So if there's no more discussion, we take that motion.
I guess I would just ask, there is one TE if the applicant's here and available, if they're, in agreement with that TE, obviously a recommendation would include that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think with that, I would recommend or make a motion to recommend approval on SPUD 1310, subject to the technical evaluations to City Council.
Perfect. I have a motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. We're still buffering here. There we go. That motion's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. So I do have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council for SPUD 1310. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast. And that application is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item number 8, which is SPUD 1311. Mr. Butler.
This is an application to rezone 2906 Northwest 21st Street from R1 to SPUD 1311.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This SPUD is to permit an existing commercial building to be zoned correctly. I don't know if there's an image that you could display, Cindy, but the existing building there on North May and Northwest 21st Street is most definitely a commercial building. It's a 2-story brick building built as a retail type of building. For whatever reason, it's zoned R1. So this SPUD would allow, well, you can see the parking lot there. This SPUD would allow my client to continue to maintain his trophy shop, and in addition, includes the lot to the west, which is a vacant residential tract. And so it would allow for a new home to be built within what is described as Tract 1 within our SPUD. We believe it to be consistent with the historical use of the property, certainly consistent with the area. No protests I'm aware of. I think it's a positive for this portion of May Avenue. And there are no technical evaluations. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Highsmith, once again, this is your ward, sir, so I'll let you lead us off.
Once again, after review of the item, I didn't have anything that concerned me as a commissioner. I would say to the applicant that they should spend some time and really consider the composition of the different facades of the potential new building. But, as a commissioner, I see no reason to fault the application. It's basically across the street from a substation. I think there's, I guess I only mention that to say, any ugly in the area really originates from that. I have no concerns. I think, they've obviously got a couple letters of support. So I think it's a simple item to me. Unless other commissioners have comments, I'd be ready to make motions.
I don't have any other commissioners, and I do not have anybody signed up to speak on this either.
Mr. Chairman, just quickly for you,
Sure.
For David, and I could be just misreading this on the signage. Am I clear that the signage will just be limited to the existing signage? And then if you wanted to add any signs, you'd have to meet this other criteria. Is that correct? Because that's not the way that it reads.
Yeah.
The way that I interpret it is you get to keep your current signage. And then if you add any signs, they need to meet this requirement that they be monument signs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so it's in the event that there's a new sign needed, it would have to be monument. There's a long-standing sign that exists there that's a pole sign. The intent is to keep that. In the event that they decided they didn't want a pole sign anymore, then it's this language that kicks in with the standard 8-foot monument.
Okay, so just for clarity, no additional signs would be allowed unless this one went away, because the wording doesn't sound like that. Just so we're clear, or maybe if staff or whoever, if other people know better, please clarify for me.
Yeah, no, that was the intent. What you're saying is the intent.
Okay.
It's
And that was my understanding
it's a
as
single,
well.
It's a single user, so I mean, they actually live on top on the second floor, and then the first floor is the kind of the retail component of it, which is a single user.
Gotcha.
I'm in
Thank you.
agreement, Commissioner Pennington, with the interpretation of the language. I think it reads to me pretty clear. So I'm good with it. Any further discussion? Commissioner Highsmith, I think we're ready for you. You're on mute.
Okie doke. Yeah, sorry, I was getting back to the name of the SPUD. I'd make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1311. And we do not have TEs. We do.
Nope.
No TEs.
Yep. Good. Yeah, make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1311 to City Council.
Thank you very much. I have a motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. And that motion was seconded by Commissioner Powers. So I have a motion to second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1311. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes should be cast.
Commissioner Highsmith? Gotcha.
And that application is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Next, you bet. Next item on the agenda is item number 9, PUD 1816. Mr. Butler?
Yes, this is an application to rezone 2525 Northwest 112th Street from PUD 1657 to PUD 1816.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, Tim Johnson here on behalf of the applicant. This is a update of an older PUD. So that, as you may recall, sometime back there was a PUD for this school. It was an abandoned school that was zoned to allow for Epic Charter to come in and take over the campus and utilize it for their charter school and homeschooling. It's been a very successful operation, and we are now back to just add a use unit or add additional use unit as needed to allow for middle and high school use, wherein most of the use would be online still. So we put specific language in the PUD that says that we'd have to come back to the Planning Commission with a site plan approval if their curriculum changes to be more in person for the middle school and high school, primarily because of more vehicles, more parking and traffic issues. So as it stands, they don't anticipate any additional parking or traffic needs because the charter school will remain online for who knows how long. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. There's no TEs, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Only question I have before I turn over to Commissioner Powers is just to confirm, staff summarizes the application as proposing to use the existing school building, and it says it mirrors your 1816 mirrors 1657, except for allowing for the school use, the virtual middle school and virtual high school, and the existing PUD does not permit screening. The proposed PUD would allow it. And then it's a specific plan would then be required for any new non-residential uses. All that, you're in agreement with all that, and there's no other changes other than that in the MDS here?
That's correct.
Okay, great. That helps me. Commissioner Powers?
This is an old elementary school. I remember when it was converted originally to permit office uses. There was a lot of interest in what was being done. There was a lot of neighborhood interest. We had a neighborhood meeting on site, a lot of attendance, but most of the questions really just had to do, oddly enough, with the playground and what was going to become of it. The uses themselves, have not been of particular concern to neighbors. This particular zoning case, I have had no calls, questions, comments at all. I've met with the applicant. I do not see a problem with this. The one question I do have, Mr. Johnson, and I'm sorry that I didn't notice it until just last night as I was doing my final review, is about the signage. I like everything about the signage, but I have a question about the statement that every business in the building will be allowed their own attached signs. I'm wondering, can we put a limit on that? And I know it's not going to have 10 businesses in it, but I would really like to see some number attached to that, just in case some other use besides what is contemplated most immediately should end up with the building.
Yeah, I would think we could cap it at 3.
That'd be great. I like that a lot. So we'll make a TE of that.
Fine.
Otherwise, I'm good with this. I think this is a really good use of this kind of building. Unfortunately, we have more than our fair share of them in Ward 2. And so to find something that seems to fit into the community and work okay, that's a plus, I think.
Excellent. I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this issue either, but I will pause just a moment and make certain, especially given to the point you made. I remember that case as well, Commissioner Powers, about this case. We had a lot of discussion there. So if you do want to be heard, now's your chance. You can press *9 on your phone or Alt-Y on your computer, and this would be the time to comment. So I'll pause just a moment. Seeing no discussion, if there's no other discussion from commissioners, I think we'll take your motion, Commissioner Powers. We just have one TE to add.
I will move approval of this item with the addition of one TE, limiting the number of attached signs to 3.
I have a motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. I do have a second by Commissioner Highsmith. So I have a motion, a second, to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 1816, subject to the technical evaluation is read. Please cast your votes. And Commissioner Hinkle, how will you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Excellent. All votes should be cast. And that application is approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda today is item number 10, PUD 1817. Mr. Butler.
This is an application to rezone 19301 North Pennsylvania Avenue from PUD 1225 to PUD 1817.
Is the applicant present? I'm looking for Hunter Miller. Is Mr. Miller signed in? I don't see him. Anybody? Cindy? Oh, there we go. Somebody raised their hand. But that's, no, I don't think that's the applicant. This is the applicant for PUD 1817.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
I'm sorry about that. Steve Rollins, Arc Engineering Consultants, 135 Deer Creek Road, representing the applicant. This is a piece of property that's currently zoned under PUD 1225. It's shown as Tract 1. It has mostly a C3 use. I would like to stress in this new PUD that we're looking at here today, that C3 use would stay in place. I tried to mirror the language from PUD 1225 exactly within this PUD. The developer would just like to add an R4 use, just to keep his options open so that he can develop the property either as all C3 or as all R4 or a combination of the two. And market would just dictate when he makes that decision and what he would like to do there. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
This is my word. I'll lead the discussion. I've got lots of concerns on this one, and Mr. Rollins, I didn't hear from anybody in my ward on this specifically. I do have somebody who signed up to speak, but and I did not reach out to you, so I apologize for that. But I think the way that this has been constructed with C3 and R4, and we're going to build some of one and some of another, but we don't know how much of one and how much of another, and how we're going to deal with the compatibility issues potentially of, the C3. And then also you've got, a blanket C3 in place, which I recognize exists on the property in terms of its current zoning. There's some uses in there that I would not favor One of them being entertainment, recreation restricted, which is not restricted. That's a false sense of security for neighbors. And then also one of my least favorite uses in areas like this, which is lodging of any kind. That really bothers me. So there's a lot of things here that I think just haven't been thought through, except to say that we might do some C3 and we might do some R4 one day. We're not sure which one, so we want both. That's troublesome for me, makes it difficult. If other commissioners want to chime in, I don't want to monopolize the thought process there, but that makes it really difficult for me because I don't know how to mitigate and buffer whatever that C3 use might be. And we're getting ready to pass an ordinance. Not this is particularly relevant for this case, but we need to treat the apartment units the same way we would give the courtesy to the neighborhood if we were talking about compatibility issues and trying to buffer some of these deals. So makes it a little tough, Mr. Rollins.
Would it help to limit those uses? There are apartments just to the north of here.
I understand. I don't make the case that what you're doing is incompatible from an area standpoint, because I don't feel that way. It's that the way that you've structured this application, I can't get my arms around what protections I can give to, let's say, the apartments develop first, and then the C3 comes later. I mean, I spent the better part of a week working with a collision repair shop at Penn and Memorial, trying to work through compatibility issues. They were backing up to an apartment complex. It's just not it's not a fair thing to do. And yes, it would help tremendously if you had defined areas shown. I mean, we all know where the C3 is going, Mr. Rollins. It's going on the hard corner. So it would be great if we could see, where that location was going to be. We could define it, and then we could do some compatibility things to sort of buffer those two uses and try to make them work together. That would be my recommendation. I'm going to have trouble getting there with the way that it's currently configured for those reasons. But I want to stress to you that I don't have an issue with either use. I have an issue with those uses combined.
This is Commissioner Highsmith. I guess what I would ask to the applicant, just leaning into Commissioner Craven's comments, is I understand the idea of wanting to keep your options open, but I mean, the rezone process can happen now, and you can put all your potential eggs in the basket, or you can wait until you guys actually know what you want to do on the dirt, and you come with something that's crafted specifically for that. And at that point, you do your rezone. I know it's not as attractive as a landowner, because you don't know, exactly what you're going to be able to do until you're ready to do it. But, I don't think that's like such a huge ask, for the citizens of Oklahoma City to ask of somebody with such an important corner. So this is just me, I guess, like I said, as a response to Commissioner Craven's, concerns on this. Just my thoughts as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I note also that we have an electronic petition, any kind of electronic anything is certainly not my bailiwick, but currently it has, 700 plus signatures on it. So I'm curious to know whether the applicant has reached out or whether there have been any meetings with surrounding property owners, whether there's been any effort to explain to people what it is that's being considered here. I'm like you, when you look at an application like this, it seems to me that the only possible way to analyze it is to go with the worst case scenario, right? Because that's the only way you can even begin to think, well, how would I buffer this use if that's what it ends up being? Or how would I deal with the encroachments that would be attendant to this kind of use if that's what it ends up being. And it is very difficult. This is very wide open.
Yep, I agree. Mr. Rollins, what say you, sir?
I was just going to address Ms. Powers' comment. We had not reached out to any of the neighbors. Most of the comments that I read had to do with their desire to keep the C3 use in place, which we are doing. And so we have not reached out to anyone to discuss that.
Okay. Well, I guess at this point, just in the essence of making sure that there's not an angle on this we haven't thought about, I do have somebody else signed up to speak. Bradley Hallmark, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for the time, and I'll be very brief. And first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone here for the time and effort, and quite an education observing how City of Oklahoma does things. Formerly, I was in City of Tomball, Texas, on planning and zoning. It's been about a decade since I was involved, so I appreciate the work that's going on. My biggest concern, and I just found out recently, and I'm not immediately at this intersection. I'm a couple of miles down, but
What is your address, Mr. Hallmark? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, sir. It's 17001 Gladstone Lane.
Okay.
And it's an Edmond address.
Thank you.
I live off of Pennsylvania Avenue in Fenwick. So my bigger concern, and if it's not out of line, the big question I have is anytime I see anything that involves multi-use dwellings, as the term I refer, and it may not be your exact designation, so I apologize for me using terms I'm familiar with. But when I first heard about it, I realized that the notice normally goes to the folks in the immediate vicinity, but not anyone that's just a little bit larger or further out in the radius. And so it made me start wondering about how many apartments we have in the area and the traffic impact. So I know this is still up in the air, and it's concerning just because it's not nailed down to the point you can make a good, solid decision. I respect the comments that have been made, and I appreciate the how you are considering this and realize there's a potential issue with this. But a question I have in general, in 5 miles radius of my home, just any direction I drive, if I was to do a hand count unscientific, there's at least 15 to 20 multi-dwelling or complexes, I'll just call them apartment complexes, just high concentration. And for me, living off the Penn without traffic schedules getting into my neighborhood, I'm concerned about egress, ingress, things like that, getting in and out. And what does that look like? I know it's not immediately next to this place, but Pennsylvania Avenue is a major thoroughfare going north and south. So a question, I guess, to the question too, y'all have kind of spoken to your concerns, but a question I would ask to the commissioners and the chairman, the number of apartment complexes that just in this general area, what is the immediate desire? And if the land designation or if this application had been strictly written by the pursuer, if you will, would it perhaps go to approval and just have additional complexes going in? So I don't know if you can make sense of my question, but it is an absolute concern when I have additional, or the thought of additional complexes going in and the multitude of cars and demand on resources and sharing of roads. It's already a burden for the residents of my neighborhood.
Well, Mr. Hallmark, I agree with you. I've been the Ward 8 Planning Commissioner for a little over 3 years now. And I can tell you that this area, we've had some highly contested cases out here involving primarily apartment complexes driven by traffic. There's one a mile to the west of here. And there's very good reasons for, some of those concerns. At the same time, what drives it isn't the city. What drives it is the demand in the marketplace, as you are familiar with from your time serving there. We're simply reactive to the request to rezone it for an apartment complex. And then we begin to run analysis on compatibility and look at some of these issues. I have issues. When I first read the application, I thought we were talking about a lot more units than what we're talking about in terms of the size and what's available to be placed there. Just for the purposes of the record, my interpretation of that, it's 144 units is what they'd be allowed here. At first, when I read it, I thought it was 480, and I was like, no way, it's a non-starter. But I still, in the current application, this combination of uses is what leads me to have some difficulty. If it were an all R4 application, I'm not sure that I would have as much of an issue with what I'm describing. As you point out, there's apartments to the north, and it's just the demand to be in this area is what's driving it. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I'll also just tell you from a historical standpoint, once upon a time in Oklahoma City, there was a desire to get anything zoned for anything. And people came out here into this part of the world in the far northwest kind of quadrant of the city, and they zoned a ton of land for R4. This was in the 80s. So there's a ton of land that people don't even realize is eligible for apartments. So we look carefully at each new application. and do our best to try to ferret out what compatibility or other issues we might have. And traffic and inflow and all that stuff is a concern out here. There's no doubt. So appreciate your comments. I do have another hand up, which is Elizabeth Miranda, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing either part of your name, but if you can hear me and you'd like to visit with us, I'd love to hear from you since your hand is raised, ma'am.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. I was the one that submitted the petition. My name is Elizabeth Miranda. I live at 19544 Talavera Lane. I'm a board member of the Thornhill Village HOA. We are located very close. Some of our homeowners actually received the letter, and we're very worried because the notice that they received just said that it was going to be changed from a C3 to R4. It didn't say anything about joint or whatever, but that is the worst outcome for our neighbors. So that's kind of how I prepared this, and that's how we've been discussing it, as this becoming an apartment complex. Because in all honesty, sorry, my son just came home. It has a huge for sale sign on the property. It's for sale. It's also listed for $2.5 million. So this rezoning is convenient for the owner. This is not convenient for the neighbors, and we don't appreciate that. What our neighborhood really needs, and it's a lot more developed than you can see in this image. Our homes are mostly filled in. Oh, shoot. I apologize. I can hear a little bit.
We can hear you fine, ma'am.
You can hear me. Okay. I don't know what happened. My dentist decided to call me and everything went down. So I kind of wrote kind of an explanation for all our thoughts, so it's mainly around apartments. What our community really wants is we really need commercial, we need retail. We don't need apartments, at least not right here. The neighborhoods around the intersection of 192nd and Penn has been in development for years. And we are packed with housing, single family, duplexes, apartments, zero lot line homes. If you're wondering, I've counted. We have 27 apartment complexes within 4.5 miles. That's 27. We have an apartment complex right next to the subject property and a new, very large complex, 35 degrees, only half a mile away. What we do not have in our neighborhood is commercial. We just have Switzer's locker room storage. We have no conveniences, no restaurants, no retail, no jobs to walk to. We have thousands of people living in our area, nothing walkable for miles. But we do have our 2 C3 general commercial zone corners that are currently for sale on 192nd and Penn. The subject property, PUD 1225, and just south of it, PUD 1205. We all drive by these lots every day and we look at those for sale signs. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with neighbors. What do you think it will be? A sandwich shop, Starbucks, ice cream shop, restaurant? What we never pictured was more apartments. We're devastated, we're confused, and we're disappointed. Plan OKC says SU 49 and also UL 1.2 both state, avoid concentration of apartment complexes. Instead, integrate multifamily units into neighborhoods with mixes of housing types or mixed-use developments. There's currently a completed apartment complex right there. It's called Point at North Penn in PUD 1225, next to the subject property. And another lot already zoned R4 with apartment plans adjacent, right to the north. If you add the subject as an R4 property, I believe that'd be kind of a concentration of apartment complexes, which goes against SU 49 and UL 1.2. SU2 encourages integration of different land uses, prevent large areas of concentration of any particular land use, such as multifamily. The proposed PUD 1817 says it is mixed use. But if the owner wants to build R4 on the vacant property, and the PUD with the primary will be primarily R4, plus just kind of that little sliver of the C3, which is Switzer's locker room. There is actually precedence for rezoning in our area from C3 to R4. The commission in 2013 allowed the rezoning of the property. And it's located just north of the current apartments where it says R4. However, they allowed the rezoning of the property to the R4. However, the reasoning was that it was small in size. There is a major pipeline that runs that kind of hinders the construction on the property. It would have very few units, and they believed it was odd to have a small commercial property placed between residential. Furthermore, the owner of that property rezoned a different property zone from R2 duplexes to R1ZL, single family, in exchange. If you try to follow the same logic here, the subject property should be denied. It is quite large in comparison, with no construction obstacles, and it leaves Switzer's locker room storage, a narrow commercial C3 property sandwiched between a lot of residential properties. There is no offer for exchange in zoning density, just a high increase in residential in an already overburdened area with no supporting retail. Plan OKC recognizes the need for retail. SU 30 states, new neighborhood retail should be located within new residential growth areas to serve daily shopping needs and limit trip distances. Okay, my last thought is just the corporation is just trying to sell this property and they're just ready to cash out. Market's hot right now. Since it's selling for 2.5 million, if they can add the R4 designation to it, it just makes it more appealing, easier to sell. They are not thinking about this community, but I know the commission does, so please deny PUD 1817.
Thank you, Ms. Miranda. And one confirming question while we're looking at the map. Thornridge was your neighborhood, correct?
Thornhill?
Thornhill, and is that west or east of the subject site?
That would be the northeast.
Northeast. So it's what's labeled on the map in front of us, north and to the east of PUD 960.
Yes. And that one is not for sale. And then the PUD below it, 1202, is not, that's actually like a horse breeding ranch.
Right.
So that's not going to be commercial anytime soon.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much for being with us today. Those are the only people that I have. Looks like I have one more person here. Kathy Walker.
Yes, sir. My name is Kathy Walker, and I reside at 2365 Northwest 199th Street. I am here as both an individual and as a representative for La Sonata Homeowners Association. I'm the secretary to the board of directors. As the gentleman mentioned, nobody has reached out to anyone in the area regarding this requested change. We were notified of it by the online protest, change.org, and it got over into our neighborhood. And since then, we as a board have heard a lot from our residents about this. We have some really major concerns. The infrastructure in this area is not built to handle any more residential. La Sonata, which is to the north and on the west side of North Penn from this, is 432 properties just by itself. And then I know there's also Thornhill and Scholars Court, and we also have an apartment complex. It's a reasonably good sized apartment complex that's just to the south of us. And then about a mile over on North May and Northwest 192nd, there is an extremely large apartment complex that has gone in. So really, we kind of feel like we are oversaturated on residential. Our schools, whether that be zoned as Deer Creek or as Edmond Public Schools, our schools are already becoming overburdened with the amount of building that's going on around here. And when those apartments complete at May and Northwest 192nd, Deer Creek schools are going to be just absolutely flooded. Our roads here are really not made to handle any more traffic. When the school lets out here, traffic is backed up for a couple of miles from Frontier and Heartland, which are Edmond schools. It makes it difficult for residents for La Sonata to get in and out of our main entrance. We also have a great deal of backup at the stop sign at Covell and North Penn. Come rush hour, it'll be backed up to the schools and beyond at times, all 4 directions, because all we have there is a 4-way stop. Going the other direction, I can see how increased residential areas would cause problems from Northwest 192nd up to 178. The point is we have such an overflow of residential areas, and we have several multifamily areas here in our little corner of Oklahoma City. We also have problems because the schools do not run buses into our neighborhoods, with the exception of the elementary school children. So our Heartland children are walking home from school down this street that, like I say, is backed up well past La Sonata's entrance. And they're walking home to La Sonata. They're walking home to Thornhill. They're walking home to Scholars Court. They're walking home to the current set of apartments. Then there's also concerns.
60 seconds, Mrs. Walker, just so you know.
Crime. That's fine. Thank you. There's also issues with increased crime and disturbances in the neighborhood that had already happened once the current apartment complex went up. So that's also a concern to our residents who live on the south side of our neighborhood. So we're going to ask that you please decline or deny this proposal. As was already stated, what we really need is commercial, and that's what we're hearing a lot of from our residents, is that if something is going to be done with it, we would much prefer commercial. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for being with us today, Ms. Walker. We appreciate it.
Mr. Cravens, I put on a question and answer Zoom on the screen. Can you see that?
I can. Yes, I see it from an anonymous person. So, but just saying that there's enough R4.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not much on anonymous comments. If you want to be heard, and you need to give your name and address for the record, otherwise I'm not going to read your comment into the record. Mr. Rollins.
Yes, Commissioner, we would just propose continuing for a couple of weeks to discuss these uses, if that would be.
Well, I think we need to continue for more than a couple of weeks. I mean, at this point, you're not going to get there. You need to go to at least June the 10th. And the reason for that is because, packets go out next Wednesday for the following meeting. There's just not enough time. What I'd like for you to do, if you're willing, is to give your email address so that particularly Ms. Walker and Ms. Miranda, who are coordinating on behalf of their neighborhood associations, can work with you and your client to schedule meetings to discuss this. What I want to do very thoughtfully here before we continue your case is just give you a couple of additional comments that I had that you can take back to those discussions. And I want to make sure other commissioners don't have comments they want to add to this. Identifying the tracks is going to be critical for me. It's going to be determinative. This C3 R4 super combo isn't going to work for me. The use units you're going to see me pull out a C3 if I have the chance are the participant and entertainment recreation restricted and the lodgings. The other thing I noticed in your architectural, you have language in here, and staff didn't catch this either, but it says finished to be approved by the planning director of Oklahoma City. You need to strike that. The rest of it is just confirming that you're limiting the building's finish to 30% EFS, which seems to be what you were trying to say. And yeah, well, actually, you did address the signs in your 12.2, so that I just, yeah, so no worries on that. So those are my general comments. Does anybody else have other concerns on this application they wish to share with Mr. Rollins as he goes back to work with neighbors?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington, just a few things. And the first thing I want to make sure that I point out is to we always appreciate having neighbors come and share their views. And I'm grateful that the neighbors did come and share theirs. Just want to point out a couple of things quickly. One, the notice that gets sent out about rezoning applications, that is mandated by the state. That is not the city that makes that decision. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out to your state legislators about your concerns about who receives notice and how far away the people are that have to live within that distance of the land that's being rezoned, because I share that concern. My second thing is, and as it was articulated by Ms. Walker about the concerns about full schools, I definitely share that concern. But again, and I say this every time, so forgive me, Ms. Walker, I say this so much on this commission. This is the state's issue. It is the state funding formula that is the problem. And I would highly encourage you to talk to your state representative, talk to your state senator about changes to the way that the funding formula works so they can scale up more quickly to build more schools. But it is not the Planning Commission's purview to be able to fully address that issue. Finally, on to the rezoning request itself, I would want to see, Mr. Chairman, it clearly divided into very clear tracks. I would like to see a clear site plan. I think we need to be very proactive about the way that we deal with the traffic so that it's very, very clear what the neighbors are going to get. I think that it's important for our friends and neighbors to realize that you can't have it both ways with traffic. If you're okay with traffic as long as it's commercial, but not okay as long as it's residential, you're still going to have traffic. So I would just say that, just be aware that that's going to be an issue no matter what with that redevelopment. But I do think it would be helpful if we were clear. So I would definitely want to know from Mr. Rollins that you had a meeting with the neighbors and that they can come back with clear understanding of what your plans are, and they have heard from you and had the opportunity to share their thoughts with you more directly. So that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, thank you very much, Commissioner Pennington, and I echo all that, Mr. Rollins. And I'll just say too, staff has my contact information. If you want to discuss the case with me again before it comes back, certainly happy to visit with you about it and try to get you back here. My recommendation to you is June the 10th. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
So there's no further discussion on this from planning commissioners. I'll take a motion to continue PD 1817 to June the 10th. Mr. Rollins is reminded that meeting is scheduled in
Hey,
person.
Scott,
it's Rusty. I don't know if it's just me, but suddenly I can't hear you.
Same for me.
It's me.
Yeah, you're kind of fading a little bit.
Got nothing now.
That's worse.
That's worse.
Oh,
That's good.
That's good. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here.
That's better.
What I was going to say is just a reminder, Mr. Rollins, the June 10th meeting would be in person.
Okay, very good.
That's the plan
right now. You'll be in City Hall.
Okay.
Okay.
No further discussion. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue PUD 1817 until our June Planning Commission meeting.
I have a motion. I'll take the second on Friday.
Second for Commissioner Privet. So motion is second to continue PUD 1817 to the June 10th, 2021 meeting. Please cast your votes. Commissioner
Hinkle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have my voting thing up, so I'll vote yes.
Okay. Commissioner Powers has voted yay.
Commissioner Claire?
yay.
Thank you.
And that continuance is approved unanimously. I want to thank the neighbors for being here today. Please make sure that you connect with staff. Mr. Rollins, ball's in your court to get with these neighbors and make sure that you have the meetings they need to get comfortable. If there's something I can do to help formulate the application before the June 10th meeting, please don't hesitate to reach out to me as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
Next
step
item on
away
the-
right quick, Scott.
Okay. No problem. Next item on the agenda is item number 11, PUD 1818. Mr. Butler?
This is an application to rezone 5621 Northeast 122nd Street from PUD 794 to PUD 1818.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, Charles Allen with Allen Engineering, 1601 Southwest 89th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73159.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
The overall, this is a overall site is 28 acres. The center portion has already been developed. It's about 6 acres for boat and RV storage. We've also got on the south of that small office building and caretakers quarters that was rezoned a couple of years ago for SPUD 901. This PUD is to expand the RV and boat storage to the east and to the north along the highway. This property is not served with sanitary sewers, so the use of this property is somewhat limited. We do have water. There's a existing 6-inch water line along the west property line, and we've got a 6-inch water line that runs through the site, and we'll be looping those together if we're approved to expand this. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this area. If you've ever driven by, you'd be hard to tell that this was a boat and RV storage. There's substantial tree growth around here, and we intend to preserve that by keeping a 40-foot green belt along the west and northern boundaries. And then staff has requested that we provide a 100-foot buffer along the core property for the stream over there. This is a leased land. This is the land is owned by the Commissioner's Land Office, and Dan Minders is the developer. He's unable to make it this afternoon. With that, I don't think there are any TEs. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Commissioner Pennington, this is your ward. Do you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good application. I don't really have very much. Just a quick question. First, for staff with custom manufacturing use unit, that's not required to be. Does that mean all indoor operations?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to be clear. I'm in support, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions.
Okay. Is there anybody that wants to be heard on this matter? I do not have anybody signed up to speak on this.
In that case,
Mr. Chairman, I note that staff in their final comments indicates that the plan conformance could be strengthened if the trees along the north could be preserved. Is that something that you're telling us you've already committed to, or are you willing to commit to?
We're committed to the 40-foot green belt. And then also, along the highway right of way, there are existing trees, obviously, that we can't do anything with. So,
I'm not exactly clear, I have to admit, where north of the facility they're talking about, but more trees is better, I guess, is what I would say about that.
This is Jeff. If Cindy, if you want to put the site plan up there, I can indicate what that is talking about. Do we have that site plan?
I'm sorry, Mr. Butler, which one, or what are you wanting again?
The site plan for this project. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So you can see on this the 40-foot buffer. So north is to the left here, I believe. And the northernmost building in that darker gray, there's actually quite a lot of trees between the 40-foot buffers line and that building. And the thinking was, well, hey, if they're putting the building there, why not just say we're going to save all those trees north of the building? That was the reason for the comment.
Mr. Allen, is that something you can live with?
I'm not sure what you're asking for then.
To preserve the trees north of that building.
Which building? The layout's kind of just, I'd say more schematic than actual design at this point, simply because the majority of those buildings are in the flatter area, along where we've got the 100-foot tree buffer. You know, the ground there's a little steeper in slope and would require some earthwork. You know, we're really, you know, the trees are really along the hillside slope. So I guess I'm trying to figure out where you're talking about, which building, north of which building.
The northernmost building in the center there.
Would be between the turnpike and the buildings that kind of parallel the turnpike.
But if, you know, if it's a schematic and, you know, the buildings may vary, then I guess, you know, we don't really have a good way to define that.
So, Commissioner Powers, can we reach a resolution here from your vantage point, or is this something that we simply can't require?
I was just curious about whether staff's request could be translated into action. If this is not something that they are married to in terms of their layout, then perhaps it would be difficult to do that. From looking at what we're looking at here, it doesn't seem like it would be any difficulty at all to just say everything, you know, north of the northern line of the buffer would be saved. But, you know, I'm not trying to design their site for them.
We run into this because, you know, where the 100-foot buffer or the 40-foot buffer is a pretty blunt instrument. You know, trees grow where they grow, and it's hard to describe where they are. So that was kind of the effort here. But if the building could change, then that makes it more difficult. And we didn't want to say, well, make an 80-foot buffer, because there are other areas where the trees don't exist. The issue here is that the 40-foot buffer on the north side, there are actually no trees in large chunks of that. The trees are further in. And we're concerned about visibility. You know, we're always trying to, as the proponent or the applicant said earlier, you can hardly tell that that this site is there. So the idea was to preserve trees and try to keep that character, so that trees were not only an environmental asset, but also a visual buffer.
Yeah, I think if we're going to do that, we need to have comments, you know, that would delineate how we could do it on the site plan to accomplish staff's task, because otherwise we wind up in this position where we've talked about it for 10 minutes but accomplished nothing. It would be helpful if we knew what we could do in the confines of the site plan to accomplish what staff sought to achieve, and then we can hold the developer accountable to that. But I haven't grabbed a hold of anything concrete that we can use here. So, Mr. Allen, I have one question on this. In your facade regulations, you've got 80% brick, rock, and veneer.
Yes.
And 30% EFA stucco, wood, and cement board. Did you mean 20%?
80-20.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to confirm you meant 80-20 and not 70-30. We got to get to 100 somehow. Okay. Anything else on this
I
one,
understand.
Commissioner Pennington?
You are correct.
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready to make a motion if the commission's ready.
I don't have anybody sign up to speak, and I don't have any hands raised. So I think we're ready.
Then I move to recommend PUD 1818. Move that we recommend approval of PUD 1818 to the City Council.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second on prime? I have a second from Commissioner Powers. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 1818. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how will you vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Excellent. All votes have been cast and that application is approved. Good luck. Next item on the agenda is item number 12, C7295. Mr. Butler.
This is a preliminary plat of Willow Villas, and it's located south of Northwest 10th Street and east of North Cemetery Road.
Is the applicant present?
Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the applicant. We have the application we have before you today is a preliminary plat for a duplex subdivision. It's in accordance with the recent SPUD that it was approved for this. We agree to the TEs, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
This is Commissioner Coffey's board. She's not with us today, so I'll jump in and just stipulate the record that the design of this preliminary plat conforms with the subdivision regulations as they relate to subdivisions with 3 lots or less. So it looks to me as though the application's in compliance. There are 5 TEs. You say you're in agreement with those?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have anybody signed up on this one. Is there anybody that wants to be heard on C7295 today?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I have one question.
Please proceed.
Mr. Grubbs, does your client own the surrounding property?
No, ma'am. That's the church owns it.
So to the south, I mean.
To the south is this.
Before it was developed, I guess is what I'm asking.
No, they did not.
Okay. Okay. Just to my fellow commissioners, I would just say the issues with these kinds of applications, and I'm not faulting this one. I don't have any problem with it at all. But when you take a big chunk of property and you carve it up into smaller ones rather than developing the whole thing a certain way, because it looks to me like this is perfectly consistent with the property to the south, but what we have south of us is a couple of cul-de-sacs, and what we have here is sort of a limited ability to connect, although there is a connection. So it's the two things you miss out on are connectivity and open space. Because this is such a small piece of land, they don't have a requirement for any kind of common area, open space, amenities, that kind of thing. And I think we need to keep an eye on that as we're looking at parcels like this, that they're not carved into such small pieces that we're losing our ability to get the things that we feel like we need. And as I said, I don't have a problem with this particular application.
Okay, it's a good point. It's a very good point. Any other comments on this one from anybody? If not, in Commissioner Coffey's absence, I need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move approval of C7295.
I have a motion, and I'll take the second on PrimeGov. I have a motion which has been seconded by Commissioner Powers to approve the preliminary plat for C7295, preliminary plat of Willow Villas. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
All votes should be cast.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grubbs. Appreciate it. Next item on today's agenda is item 13, C7296. Mr. Butler.
This is a.
Scott, I'm going to step away real quick. This is Commissioner Highsmith.
No problem.
This is a preliminary plat of Satenta Grove, located north of Southeast 74th Street and west of South Anderson Road.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. On behalf of the applicant, Mark Grubbs, the civil engineer, is also on the line with us. This is a preliminary plat that consists of 22 single-family lots and 1 commercial lot. It is consistent with the underlying PUD, which is PUD 1794. It is a rural subdivision where you have 1 acre lots in the northern tract and 2 acre lots on the southern tract. And of course, the hard corner is reserved for commercial. So there's a couple things I want to talk about. In terms of the TEs, we do agree with all of the TEs except for number 2 we'd like to visit about. In terms of fire suppression, we would like to not provide for sprinklers. One of the main reasons is we have a fire station just immediately there to the north. I believe it's 300 feet. So it's the building along Anderson that you see that is closest to Anderson, immediately north of our subject site, is a fire station. So we would prefer to not utilize fire suppression because of the proximity to that fire station. Additionally, there's a comment buried as a kind of a boilerplate comment under the public works section that I just want to be clear on. It talks about sidewalks shall be installed, and of course it's not a TE, so it can't be required, but for purpose of the record, I need to make this clear. Public Works failed to put the entirety of the sentence in there, so for clarity's sake, I think I should. Under Chapter 59, Article 12, Section 12100.2 sub G, when it talks about sidewalks, the sentence that they left out said, provided, unless required by a final plat, no sidewalk shall be required on single-family residential lots 1 acre and larger used for residential purposes having frontage on public streets classified as major or minor arterial. So clearly, Chapter 59 does not require sidewalks in this circumstance. So I just wanted to make sure that was on the record for a future fight in case it came up. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Box, do you know if at the zoning phase, if the fire suppressions were built into this process?
They were not.
Okay. Commissioner Powers, did you have a question?
Well, yeah, the question I think is not where the fire station is. The question is where the water is. It's not whether there are, fire stations nearby. It's whether there's water available in the case of need. So.
Yeah, well, presumably the fire trucks have water when they travel the 100 yards down Anderson. We are on well water.
They got to get it somewhere. If it's a bad fire, they got to hurry up.
Mr. Chairman,
I'd love
can
to
you
have
staff
somebody
on
speak
this?
to us about that.
Yeah.
I'd
Can you
like
staff
someone
on
from
this?
staff to address this issue. And the fact that there's the fire stations in my neighborhood don't have water when they come to the house. So, if there's something different about this, I'm curious.
Mike Wilson, your hand is raised. You can join us. You seem like the right source here.
Yeah, I seem to be the fallback for a lot of things. The comment talks about the sprinklers or the water distribution. What happens is if we have basically lots that are less than 5 acres, we feel we need a water supply. In the past, that had been a large tank that might have 10, 20,000 gallons of water in it, that the trucks could get there and access that water and use it. Yes, they do have some water on the truck, but it's not near enough to fight a fire. It may be enough to get started, but it wouldn't be enough to continue. So if they were to have a fire in here, we'd have to be trucking water from somewhere, bringing it back and forth, hopefully within time to help put the fire out. So our opinion was when you want the smaller lots, that we need some type of fire suppression or water supply.
That sounds eminently reasonable to me.
Does to me too.
Mr. Box?
I am furiously typing to my client to see if we can agree to a water tank. He says he is open to a tank. So we can agree to the tank, which would qualify under the water distribution system rather than individual sprinklers in a home.
Can we, David, Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road. Can we just do either or? Look at our options on that, a tank or fire suppression, one of the two options.
I think either, I think either qualifies under the subreg, so I don't think we have to tell Planning Commission what we're doing. Whatever we do, either one of those would satisfy the subregs.
So you're in agreement with TE2?
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically it needs to go away because otherwise it would need a variance. So TE2 can just be deleted because we are going to comply with the subregs.
No, TE2 says you'll either do individual fire suppression systems or a water distribution system. So
yeah, but I mean, my point is it's because it's a subreg. So we agree, we're saying we're not seeking any variances. But either way, I think we get to the same point. By not getting a variance, we are, of course, then meeting the subregs.
Okay.
And no TE, I mean, I don't think we need to do anything on the sidewalks just because what the code is clear. And I've had a meeting with Development Services today on this topic, but based upon this comment that was slid in without the full section actually being provided to you, I felt it necessary to actually read the full provision that's found in the ordinance.
That's fine. So we are in agreement now with all 6 TEs.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Privet, do you have anything else on this?
I do not.
Okay. I don't have anybody.
And that's addressed, so I'm good.
Okay. I do not have anybody sign up to speak on this one either. So I'll pause just a moment and see if there is somebody. I've got
David, this is Mark Grubbs again. We just need to clarify TE6 that the limits of no access is in conformance with what's shown on the preliminary plat and not all the way across the arterial streets.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Correct, JJ?
Well, it just says must be provided along the section line roads in the final plat. I just want to clear that it's as shown on the preliminary plat.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Mr.
Privet, I don't have anybody signed up. So if there's no more discussion, my friend, it's your turn.
All right. Do we need to change the wording on that, or is it good on TE6?
I think it's good on TE6. I think they're comfortable. Mike Wilson, do you have another comment you need to make, sir?
Yes, on the, I just want to note on the sidewalk issue, the corner that's going to be commercial would be required sidewalk when they get a permit, unless you say sidewalks are not required as part of this PUD.
Well, this isn't a PUD.
So,
whatever I mean, this is a plat.
Oh, the plat. Okay, so it's already zoned.
Correct.
All right, Commissioner Privet, fire away.
Okay. Approve case number C-7296, preliminary plat of Setenta Grove, subject to the TE.
Got it. I have a motion and I'll take the second on Prime Gov. I have a second from Commissioner Power. So I have a motion, a second to approve the preliminary plat for C-7296, subject to the technical evaluations in the record. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes.
All votes should be cast, and that application is approved unanimously. Next item is item 14, DA 26379. Mr. Beller?
Application by Ish and Associates for consideration of a lot split deed approval on property located at 6401 North Stinchcomb Avenue, and a variance to section 3.4.4.C.2F of the subdivision regulations.
Is the applicant present?
Yes.
We'll start out by giving us your name and address for the record, and then let us know what we need to know about this application.
My name is Chris Chamberlain. I live at 6131 North Stinchcomb Avenue. It's about a quarter mile south of this location. Purchased this land recently. I live nearby. my motivation for purchasing and developing this is to make sure it's done in a way that meets the rest of the area and is up to a par and at a certain standard. And so that's kind of my motivation for doing this.
This property in total is 10.64 acres in size, and you're lot splitting it 5 ways. Let me ask you a question. Why not just plat it?
Well, so I think there's some confusion on that. When I purchased it, tracks D and E were 5-acre tracts, and then tracks A, B, and C was a separate 5-acre tract. So I purchased 2 separate 5-acre tracts. When I spoke with the guys at the city, they kind of saw it as one 10-acre tract, but when I purchased it, it was 2 5-acre tracts. So I'm not sure where the disconnect is there. So my thinking was meeting subdivision regulations was to split the one 5-acre tract twice and the other one once to be within the regulations without being a full-blown subdivision. The unique thing about this land is it's farmland. People are wanting to move out of the neighborhood to the north and have acreages and bigger lots of land. So that's kind of the reason for not platting it and doing a lot of smaller lots, is that people are seeking those acreages kind of in town, So.
Okay. Commissioner Clare, this is your ward, sir. I'll let you take it from here. Or not? You're on mute, Commissioner Clare.
All right, thank you. I do have a couple questions for Mr. Chamberlain. TE2 talks about city sewer. Is it your intention to extend city sewer west on 63rd Street to service these lots?
So initially, about a year ago, I was downtown before COVID shut the offices downtown down. And I met with people about what was going to be required, potentially developing this to make sure it was going to be financially feasible. So I've already extended city water, which I know you didn't ask about, but the city sewer, I met with those people, and they at that time let me know that that was not going to be required and was not be possible. Here on last Friday, I received a call informing me that there was a note on there about sewer possibly being extended to lots D and E, which was the first I'd heard of that since I'd met downtown face to face, and I don't know who the gentleman I spoke with was. So it is my intention to request a variance for the sewer connection. It's my intention to request a variance and not extend the sewer to those 2 lots.
So all these lots will be on septic?
Yes, sir. So I live just south of this location and am on septic and well water. I don't have access to city water. And so that is my vision for the area, that they will have option for city water, and I've extended that, and that those lots would be on septic.
Okay. It looks to me like there's a house that is just to the west of what you've indicated as track C, just by a few hundred feet. That's just very, very new, as in it's probably still finishing up construction.
Yes, sir.
Is that, that's obviously not on your property, but are you aware of any further development to the west? And what is that tract to the west? Looks to me like it could be a larger 10-acre lot.
Yes, so they purchased that tract. It's actually 2 5-acre tracts there that are to the west of this. The southernmost 5-acre tract is what you're referring to. Those are friends of ours building a home there. There's a tract just to the north of that location. I don't know the individual who owns that or what his plans are. So they are, I communicate with that homeowner, person building the house regularly, and we're excited about working together to make sure the area is developed and done properly. All that land was going for sale. And so, like I said, my motivation, since I live right there, is just to make sure it was done at a standard that everyone would be happy with, and the residents in the area would be proud of as well.
And this is probably more of a question for staff, but Mr. Chamberlain, since you're so familiar with the area, if you can chime in. Do you know, is Northwest 63rd a public street? Is there public right-of-way west of North Stinchcombe Avenue?
So this is another conversation I had with people there downtown. So just west of 63rd there, as it extends west, that is not considered 63rd Street, but that is a section line right-of-way, to use the proper terminology. So initially, when I presented this lot split to the guys downtown, they were telling me that those lots did not have road frontage, because although there is a gravel road right there and people drive down that regularly, the city does not recognize that as 63rd Street. So eventually, the more they looked at it, they agreed that that is a section line right-of-way that would be considered a private drive. I have granted them easements and setbacks, so if they want to extend that and put in sidewalks and if the city wants to extend that into a 2-lane, 4-lane road, I have granted them the right-of-way and easements to do that.
Okay, but you won't be improving 63rd Street west of Stinchcombe to public street standards?
No, sir. Financially, with this small of a project, I don't think that would be feasible. And currently, it's a gravel, kind of like a broken old asphalt gravel road. So my intention is to dress that up, shape it a little bit, and throw fresh gravel on it, but not curb and gutter or asphalt it. No, sir.
From an addressing standpoint, I'm presuming that all 5 of these residences will have a Northwest 63rd Street address, or because it's a section line road, is that different one?
I have no idea. I was kind of interested to see how that worked as well, and the next step in the project, assuming this gets approved, would be to seek addresses and run utilities to those lots to try to get them ready to be sold.
So I do have a little concern with the with that not being a public street and addressing, but I'll let staff, JJ or Jared, if you could weigh in on if those are founded or not.
They would be the houses would be addressed off 63rd Street, and it is a public. It's statutory right of way, so we have public right of way there.
Okay. That's all I really had.
Excellent. Commissioners, any other comments on this? I don't have anybody signed up to speak.
I think my question is, and I'm sorry if I missed part of it, I just wanted to be clear. As I read the staff report, as far as the street issue, just for clarity, is there any requirement that the street needs to be upgraded beyond the plans that Mr. Chamberlain outlined? I just want to be clear, because it sounds like there's still some communication issues about what he thinks his expectations are, should we approve this proposal, and what his requirements actually are. Can any staff member speak to that?
I believe he's going to seek some revocable permits to do something less than city standard, but I'll let Jared speak to that. I think he has the information on that.
Yeah, I believe, we've seen in situations where a section line road and hasn't been improved past a certain point, the right of way exists, the type of development isn't very extensive, not very many lots, not a lot of density. So in those situations in the past, they've had a revocable permit to be able to just serve those lots with a improved driveway, kind of like a private drive, instead of building a road. I haven't seen a development, at least since I've been here, where we've required them to improve the section line road for a handful of lots. So I believe that's kind of what's happening here. He's gonna improve that driveway that's existing, or that gravel road, in order to serve these.
Okay, then second question, and hopefully, Mr. Chamberlain, you're good with that. That was your understanding of what you
Yes.
need to do?
Based on my conversations with the people down in the downtown offices, that's kind of been what I've been told, is that's kind of considered a private drive. And obviously I want to make it nice for those homeowners and my friends over there as well. And I'll be using it as well. So that's kind of been my understanding, is that it would be considered a private drive, and I could kind of, do with it as you would, or up to, that standard.
And I would say that the house to the south there, I think, is a fairly recent build, and they've improved kind of the eastern portion of that, where it connects to Stinchcombe and existing 63rd, kind of as their driveway. And I think it sounds like he's going to continue it from that point where that one kind of stops, and then keep it going to serve the rest of these lots.
Yeah, the first 200 feet west of Stinchcombe is fairly new, and it looks like to me like they recently did an overlay on 63rd Street. I couldn't really tell whether they went ahead and ran that west of Stinchcombe, but the paving is in pretty good condition for about 200 feet up until that driveway that you mentioned, Jared, and then beyond that, it's in pretty poor condition, and it looks to me like you'll need about another 300 feet to access those three western lots. So,
Yes, sir. And my intention, so the tracks have the panhandle down to the section line right of way, but my intention is also to put in a road kind of in the panhandle of tract A there. It would have a culvert there, as there's a little, minor ditch, minor water flow there, but a private driveway that heads back to the north that would service track C, B, and A, as well as track D could use it if they wanted a side entrance to their lot, or do a shop or something like that back in the back, to try to just make ease of use for those lots more practical and better.
Can I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chairman? And this one's also for staff, as far as assuming we're going to grant the variance that's requested as TE2 regarding the sewer line. My understanding is that if we're going to have those septic systems, that the half acre is the required lot size minimum by the state. But I just wanted to be clear that we don't anticipate any compatibility issues. Particularly, I'm thinking about tract A and its proximity to those single family homes that are on much smaller lot sizes next door. We don't anticipate that being any issues. I just want to be very clear about that before I vote yes.
No, these lots are quite large. I don't think it would be any issue at all.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Bennett, it's zoned R1. So he alluded, Mr. Chamberlain will figure this out, but he alluded to, like an accessory structure. He's going to be limited there by what kind of accessory structure he can put on the property because of the way that it's zoned. But he'll get there. I do have somebody who's been very patient with their hand up, and I missed it at the outset, so I want to catch it. Steve and Becky Evans, if you can hear me and you'd like to join our discussion and let us know something about this item, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, hi, my name's Becky Evans, and I'm at 6613 Chelsea Lane. My property backs up to tract A, actually just immediately next door to tract A. So I'm not exactly in this group, but just a concern for Chris that I wanted to speak up is that we've had a lot of construction trash that blows up against our fence. So whenever he sells this land to whoever, I would appreciate it if they would stress the fact that we know how windy it is out here. All of that trash ends up in our yard. So if he would just express that to whoever he sells this land to, that would be very helpful. And I'm just making sure zone R1, since I don't know anything about this, is single family. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. All right. Well, we're excited. We just, we're just happy that it's not going to be apartments or something like that. So
We
that's all I
appreciate you
have to
being
say.
with us. Thank you for being so patient, Ms. Evans.
You bet. Thanks.
I don't have any other hands raised, guys. So at this point, I think we're kind of ready. Commissioner
Yes.
Claire, I'll leave this up to you.
Okay, I'm prepared to make a motion in support of this. We'll start with TE2, the variance. Make a motion to recommend approval of a variance to section 5.1.10.b or 0.5.b, negating the requirement to extend public sanitary sewer to the site.
I have a motion and I have a second from Commissioner Pennington on the variance to section 10.b.10b of subdivision regulations. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes should be cast on that first variance.
Commissioner Powers?
Oh, there it is. I was buffering. I did vote yes.
Okay. And that variance has been approved.
All right, I'll
Commissioner
move
Claire?
to the other variance. Recommend recommendation to approve the variance to section 3.4.4.c.2f, the subdivision regulations regarding the total number of lots that can be created from a single lot.
I have a motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov for our second variance to section 3.4.4C2F of the subdivision regulations. And that motion has been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your vote. Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes should be cast. And that variance is approved. Now we just need a motion on the item.
And then lastly on the item, I'll move approval of item DA 26-379.
I have a motion and I'll take the second one available on PrimeGov. Then seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes on a recommendation to City Council to approve DA 26379.
Claire, did you make that motion?
I did make that motion, yes.
Yep, seconded by Commissioner
Sorry,
Powers.
guys.
Commissioner Hinkle, how will you vote on this one?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes should be cast, Paula.
Commissioner Pennington? Gotcha.
And that application is approved. Next item on the agenda for today is item 15, SPUD 1286.
This is an application to rezone 1210 through 1230 Linwood Boulevard, 1209 through 1227 Northwest 6th Street, and 706 North Ellison Avenue from C4 to SPUD 1286.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Jeff Sabin, Center for Economic Development Law, 301 North Harvey, Suite 100, in Oklahoma City, representing the applicant SA Management Services. I'm joined by Austin Maiden and Lindsay Laird with the Arnold Family Foundation, also with SA Management Services. SPUD 1286 was originally scheduled before the commission for a hearing back on January 14th.
Commissioner Pennington, Mr. Sabin, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Commissioner Pennington, I'm going to step away for just 1 second.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Mr. Sabin.
Okay, so we'd originally had this hearing scheduled for January 14th, but we were granted a continuance to make some amendments and to clarify some of the intended use of the project under the SPUD. During the interim period, the applicant actually acquired 2 adjacent lots to the west of the site. So the 2 lots immediately adjacent to Ellison Avenue were not originally included with this application. So those lots are currently car repair and a home that is in the process of being demolished. The property for this SPA is intended to house a social services campus for multiple social services agencies to give them the chance to coordinate their efforts and provide essentially a one-stop shop and coordinate services to their clients. It may also eventually be considered as an alternate site for the MAPS 4 diversion hub, one of the projects approved on the MAPS 4 election. However, that selection process and the design of the diversion hub is going to be handled by the MAPS 4 office. Regardless, the applicant desires to build the social services campuses with or without the diversion hub as a tenant. And there are several social services providers and charities in the greater community that they believe would benefit from having a central location. Any campus that's envisioned is going to need the sufficient space and appropriate land use authorizations for the agencies that they would be able to find and locate there to be able to provide their services, including assistance finding or maintaining employment or skills training, helping people obtain emergency, transitional, or permanent housing opportunities, improving educational or literacy capabilities, and possibly assessing and providing some outpatient treatment for substance abuse and mental health issues. And that's the primary reason for pursuing a spot on this property is to get the sufficient land use authorizations and use unit classifications that would allow that social services campus to function and to allow these charities to actually conduct their services on site. I'm going to hand it over to Austin Maiden to provide us some additional discussion about the proposed project. Austin?
So when looking at this property, kind of a big thing for us was finding a central location. And this is probably as central as we could get given kind of the growth downtown. Obviously providing something along a major bus route or something near kind of the bus terminal to where it's a quick walk. We'd only have to require individuals from all over different parts of the city to essentially only have to take one bus ride at most. That's kind of our goal here. The different agencies kind of coming into this space would be multiple service providers. So there's a potential that could be a number of the service providers that Jeff kind of had mentioned that could kind of be housed and lived under multiple areas within these two buildings. There also is kind of a drop-off location on the west side of the facility. That's kind of for a shuttle, maybe a police officer or additional service providers to have an easy place to drop people off without having to disturb traffic. So that's kind of why we have this large parking lot on the south and kind of buildings along Linwood. Outside of that, the MAPS committee will decide if the diversion hub uses the space at all. We're also open that if, the MAPS committee would also like to use this for additional MAPS projects, we are open to having that discussion as well, as long as they're kind of social services based. That's kind of the goal, is to kind of bring as many here as quickly and as efficiently as possible, kind of located around these downtown areas. And kind of Lindsay Laird, she's the VP of programs for the Arnold Family Foundation. She can kind of speak more to what those organizations could potentially look like.
Thanks, Austin. Hello, my name is Lindsay Laird. I'm with the Arnold Family Foundation, 911 Northwest 57th Street here in Oklahoma City. I would like to take just a few minutes to tell you a little bit about the foundation, our work in the community, and the vision for the property under consideration. We were founded in 2015 by Sue Ann Arnall with a vision to create really lasting transformative improvements to systems and programs that serve individuals and families involved in the criminal justice and child welfare systems through results-driven investments. We seek to support partners, typically nonprofits that can start or expand programs that's filling a gap in our community. And since 2015, we've supported about 150 partners in Oklahoma County alone. Our two primary program areas that I just mentioned include child welfare and criminal justice reform. Our Child Welfare Fund supports organizations in Oklahoma County and in rural Oklahoma, while our criminal justice reform work is focused exclusively here in Oklahoma County. We operate under a strategic plan which guides all of our programming-based outcomes we're trying to impact. In this sense, we operate somewhat like investors. So opportunities for improvement, gaps in services, gaps in the community, what's the return on the investment, and where can we see the greatest impact? For this particular piece of property, we do see it as an incredible investment for our community. I've worked with dozens of nonprofits, service providers here in Oklahoma City who are doing amazing work. And in fact, some of the most impactful organizations have worked to remove as many barriers as they can for their clients. And Jeff alluded to this actually with the co-location of services and really envisioning a social services campus. A few great collaborations that I want to mention, not intended to be on this particular site, but just examples, include the the Homeless Alliance Westtown campus, bringing service providers together to prevent homelessness, the Care Center, which serves as Oklahoma County's only child advocacy center, the Family Tree. It's a public-private partnership that we're involved in between DHS and several social services providers supporting families and children involved in the child welfare system. And then most recently, as you all have heard, the Diversion Hub, which helps clients navigate the justice system. These are just a few examples of social service organizations who understand the importance of collaboration, and we are right there along with them in that support. The vision is for this property that it will go toward the betterment of our community ultimately and our citizens as a social service campus. With its proximity to downtown, as Austin mentioned, the bus station, as well as the expanding social services just west of downtown, we believe this is an ideal central location for multiple opportunities to coordinate efforts. I think that kind of wraps up, but I just also want to reiterate that ultimately the MAP subcommittee and Citizen Advisory Board will have ultimate say. But we do think this is an excellent backup option for the hub, but we'll ultimately go as a social services campus. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Commissioner Highsmith, this is in your ward, sir. Do you want to jump off our discussion here?
Sure. Yeah. I've talked with the applicant several times. I got to say, generally, I support this type of service. I think everything that they've stated, I believe to be true in terms of, social service locations and the importance that they be coordinated with bus routes and really, transportation and mobility options for the, obviously for the people that they service. I think the location makes sense. I know how difficult it is to assemble land, especially this close to downtown. I'm sure they've gone through a lot of effort. And, frankly speaking, as somebody that's a property owner within a few blocks, I find this, to be totally appropriate and much needed. So, with that said, I'll kick it over to my fellow commissioners if anybody has any comments or suggestions of how we might make this one better. Otherwise, I'd be ready to make a motion.
Commissioners, go ahead, Commissioner Bennington.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to vote yes. I love this project. Do not take this question as me coming for you, because it's not that. I'm going to vote yes. Just want to know, the use unit 8250.8, forced detention or correction facilities. Why do you all need that use unit?
So I can probably answer that. The biggest thing is we're just unsure of the different types of organizations that are going to come in that support, because there's so many different potential social services spaces. So we're just trying to make sure that if we worked with an organization that worked within the criminal justice system at all, that we would be able to house them within this space. Because again, our goal is to bring locations or people to a location that they can access all services. So they're not having to go all over the place. So, just being incredibly unfamiliar with that space, there's concerns that, hey, we want to make sure we gather everything so we don't have to come back through this process again. Does that make sense?
It does. I think my concern is if we vote for this as is with that use unit in there, does that mean that we are then in the future, when you stop functioning as a diversion hub, if you all don't own this property anymore, that this is then going to be a jail or any other kind of forced detention facility of that nature? I think that's what I'm trying to understand. And if I'm totally off base, and forgive my ignorance also about diversion programs, I don't know if that automatically means that people who are currently in government custody get brought over, and so you need to have facilities like that on hand. Is that why that's needed? I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, that's potentially a reason why. And, we're definitely open to language too, if we need to put something in there that stipulates if the diversion hub does not happen, this can no longer be valid for the space. We're totally fine with also doing something like that.
I'd be curious to hear if other commissioners share that concern, or if I am just like too far gone over this. I think
that's a good point.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I mean, when you have multiple listed possible uses, I think it's important always to think about that means that any single one of them could occupy the entire space.
Yep.
I mean, there's an intended use here. If it would be, necessary to retain it, I kind of doubt it is. But again, I'm not all that familiar with these kinds of uses, so I wouldn't be in a position to say definitively yes or no. But I think if it is necessary to leave it in, then you just limit it to an accessory use to the diversion hub or whatever.
I was going to, if I can point out, in our initial discussions with Commissioner Highsmith, he'd expressed some concerns, not just about the forced detention, but about several of the other uses listed, and suggested potential language that uses that the commission is going to have an issue with, we make sure to include a condition that they will be ancillary to the overall use of the site as a multiple social services agency campus, to make sure that it is not used as that particular use overall for the entire site. And I think without, Austin can answer, but I think we'd be open to that kind of a limiting language if that's.
Yeah, absolutely. If that's what helps us get this through, we're definitely completely fine with that language.
I think for that use unit in particular, for me, I would feel more comfortable if we did that. I just don't want us to get rid of the county and then all of a sudden they say, well, the diversion hub is not happening. Let's use this land right over here on Linwood. That's my worry. But
I agree. So the question is, I guess, are there other uses that fall under that same heading for various commissioners?
I don't see any. I think the idea that the applicant had of just putting an overarching limitation on the uses is probably a great idea.
So you're saying to apply that language to all the uses?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. That would be fine with me.
Did we get clarification from staff? I know that they talked about the drop-off area. And
I wanted to talk about that too.
Staff's not wild about it being on the west side of the building. They want it on the side or on the south side of the site. Staff, can somebody articulate a concern for where they've shown it on their site plan being on the west? Originally it was on Linwood, which I totally understand why staff had an issue with that. They moved it off of Linwood to this west side street. What's the issue with that from your vantage point?
Hey, Scott, unfortunately, I don't think it's just me again. Your microphone's going out. Fortunately, it's rarely, but it just went out again.
Well, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what the deal is. It keeps coming in and out.
You're back now. You were only gone for about 20 seconds, but you're back.
Well, my apologies, but can somebody from staff articulate that in terms of the drop-off location, what the issue with it is being on the west?
Yeah, initially the drop-off was on Linwood, and we had some concerns about that and requested them to move that to the south or on site. But the Ellison location is fine with us.
Okay. I kind of figured it would be. So I wasn't sure if that was an old comment or what the deal was, but I understand their need for wanting it on the west side of the site away from the parking lot where somebody could just sort of whip in and drop off and pick up or whatever. It makes sense to me. So I don't have an issue with it.
So TE2 would be deleted.
With respect to TE1 as well, the original site didn't include that lot was incorporated, or that green space was specifically incorporated to try to address.
Okay. Commissioner Highsmith, anything else? I don't have anybody signed up on this.
So just as a technical question, does that mean that we're going to leave TE1 and they've met it, or are we going to eliminate both TEs?
My understanding based on what he just said is that he's met TE1, so we can leave it, and we're going to delete TE2.
Okay.
That all good?
I think so.
Am I making a motion?
Better now than never.
There's no other people that want to be heard on this.
No, nobody signed up and no hands raised.
Right on. Okay. Well, in that case, I will make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1286, subject to technical evaluation 1, striking technical evaluation 2 to City Council.
And adding the language about limiting the uses so long as it's a diversion, right?
And adding that language, correct.
So long as it's used for general social services in case the diversion hub does not locate here.
General social services campus, sure.
I'll rely on you and staff to come up with that language prior to City Council and ensure that they are approving of that language.
A motion and take a second on Prime, Jeff. Second by Commissioner Powers. So motion and second to recommend approval of City Council on SPUD 1286. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Hinkle. Commissioner Hinkle, how will you vote on this one?
Yes, please, and I'll be stepping away for a second.
Okay, no problem.
Mr. Claire.
Yeah, I do not have the option to vote, so I'll voice vote with yay.
Thank you. All votes should be cast. And that application is approved unanimously. Item 16 oh, thank you. We appreciate you. Items 16 and 17 were continued from today's docket or agenda, so that we're on to item 18, SPUD 1307. Mr. Butler.
This is an application.
Scott, real quick, I'm recusing from this item.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. You emailed me about that. Thank you, Asa. Go ahead, Jeff.
To rezone 3100 North Walker Avenue from C3 to SPUD 1307.
The applicant present? This is SPUD 1307, item number 18 on today's agenda.
See ya.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, okay. Yes, David Ledbetter, address is 2612 Drakestone Avenue. And the purpose for our SPUD was making this application is to allow the property to develop for certain uses that are not fully covered in the standard 3Z zoning. And we had 4 main items we wanted to address. The first item is to specify the exact permitted uses. And we also wanted, we wanted to allow certain uses that weren't covered by standard 3C zoning. We also wanted to include certain services that, eliminate certain unwanted uses. The second item was to establish the project limitations. We wanted to establish the height and area, the types of building materials allowed, and establish the certain parking requirements. The third main item was to limit the size and the type of signage on the project. The fourth item was to eliminate the to establish the location of the recycling and refuge containers. And to my knowledge, the staff has 2 recommendations. So we agreed to those. I think they were eliminating the hours and display times of the festival markets. And the staff also wanted to specifically include the accessible parking requirements for the parking provisions. And I think Janice Powers requested to increase the brick from 50 to 70%, which we agreed to, and to limit the number of signs to 9.
Okay, anything else you want us to know?
We're open to questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Commissioner Powers, this is your ward, ma'am, so I'll let you kick us off.
Yes, this is a site that many of you, I'm sure, are acquainted with. It sits at 30th and Walker and sort of on the northeast corner of the whole Paseo district commercial activity node. This is a very, very old use that's in this area. It is much used and much beloved. It's a little the worse for wear and tear in some places, but the people who live in this area are very attached to it. And so we had a lot of interest, a lot of phone calls, a lot of questions. we held a meeting and invited everyone from the surrounding area to come and talk about the application. The attendance was really lower than I think everyone expected, because by that time, the word had really gotten out already. This property is owned by Dr. Joy Reed Belt. She and her husband, John Belt, of course, were pioneers in the preservation of the Paseo area. She is very, very committed to the preservation of this space. She, so much so that she wanted written into the SPUD that if in the event the property is redeveloped, it's going to basically be redeveloped as is. She, employed her lawyer to make sure that there were height standards and all that kind of stuff incorporated, which is a great thing. There's kind of a little cutout. You can barely see it on this exhibit they're displaying now, where the building is kind of set back right there in the south. My directions are so bad. Southeast corner. There's a little notch there, and it's a lovely little open area that would make a great outdoor dining space, or in the case of the proposal, perhaps a display for a kind of farm to table farmers market little area. The rest of the space is basically given over to various kinds of artists. The Prairie Gypsies catering and kitchen is a part of this. Dr. Bout's own offices are a part of it. The Red Rooster is on the hard corner to the southeast. And then there's a little stained glass facility there. Like is true of every old commercial node in Ward 2, the parking is very limited, and there was a lot of discussion about that. The parking along Walker is partially in the right of way. There is a project underway to do a street improvement project along Walker. And so we wanted to write language into the SPUD that made it clear that the parking that there is currently on site is sufficient for the uses in the SPUD. If something happens later because of the streetscape project along Walker that reduces or limits the amount of parking that's available on Walker, the parking that's left is still going to be sufficient for the needs of the SPUD. I talked to Kim Cooper Hart, who's kind of in charge of the business district redevelopments, and about that streetscape project and whether it would really, in fact, result in the loss of parking along Walker. She doubts it very much, and if so, it'll be a space or two. So I promised Curtis Piggin that I would read into the record, and I certainly have it here in writing. Like I thought it was just going to hand it to Cindy Lake and over the air, I guess. But I did promise I would read into the record the changes. The SPUD itself leads off with a statement that the purpose of the SPUD is the preservation of the building, basically, and the maintenance of the uses, the combined uses that are there now, with the allowance of this additional, farm to table farmers market, possibly an adjunct kitchen. There's already one there for the Prairie Gypsies. But otherwise, the property is going to remain pretty much as it is now. That includes the sidewalks as they are now, the parking as it is now, the dumpster as it is now, except that it'll be enclosed. Unless something happens and, the building is squashed, all of that will remain as it is. In the event it's redeveloped, then things like parking and sidewalks and dumpster locations may have to be reconsidered. But as I said, Dr. Belt is committed to the redevelopment of the property just as it is. So during her lifetime, I think that's pretty much a given. So the language that we agreed on was the existing parking shall be deemed to meet parking requirements for this SPUD. Maneuvering will be permitted in the right of way. And we're talking there primarily about Walker. I'm sorry, will be deemed to meet the requirements of this SPUD so long as the existing structures remain. Any streetscape improvements by the city of Oklahoma City that may reduce the existing parking shall not be deemed to make the property in violation of this SPUD. In the event the property is redeveloped, the parking requirements of Oklahoma City Municipal Code in effect at the time of redevelopment shall apply to this property. Maneuvering in the right of way is permitted on Northwest 30th Street. Oh, yes, the apron there between the existing spaces and the actual street, Northwest 30th, if you're familiar with it, is pretty wide. So maneuvering is going to be allowed there. Nothing's really going to change about the property or how it operates or what's being done with it. So, except that there's going to be a small change in the additional uses. The existing red rooster sign will be allowed. It's iconic, will be allowed to remain. Other signage is going to develop, it's going to be adhered to a particular sign code. Blade signs, they have a package for that. You know, if you need to know anything else about it, ask me. I'm all in favor of this. This is a great thing. And the neighbors were, you know, overwhelmingly in favor of it.
Janice, this is Commissioner Claire. I know the intent is to basically leave it as is and make a few use, but you know, I think they're missing a huge opportunity. You mentioned the dumpster location and then potentially an outdoor dining space. And is there any reason that dumpster can't go in the alley on the north side?
There is not room in the alley on the north side. At the north, I'm so bad with directions, west corner, there are overhead lines and all that sort of thing. And it's just not possible to maneuver it. They would have moved it if they could. They would have liked to, frankly.
And dumpsters are not legally allowed in alleyways anyway.
Oh, news to me.
Well, I see a lot of illegal dumpsters then.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay, well, I do have one person who signed up to speak, and I can see that they're with us. William White, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We sure can. What is it you'd like us to know about this application, Mr. White?
Good afternoon, Bill White, 3200 North Harvey Parkway. Also, William White, executor on the trust at 416 Northwest 30th. I appreciate first Ms. Powers and Nate speaking with me, and also Mr. Ledbetter. So I appreciate their concerns and adjustments to the SPUD through the process. I do apologize for being unable to attend the neighborhood meeting. My concern is the SPUD is written, it does say 35 feet. Mr. Ledbetter said that's the current height. I just want to be sure that the existing height is maintained, and that is that it's written in. Originally, it was a little bit confusing. Secondly, on the square footage, is it my understanding there'll be a square footage expansion of the interior space? Is that, or is it just going to remain the same?
There's no changes to any of the spaces.
And so there will not be a change in the square footage of the building in any capacity?
None.
Okay. And then again, obviously having lived in Edgemere in this area, the parking is extremely important to us. As special events, people park all the way to Harvey Parkway. So as we increase the usage, those are our concerns. I think they've been addressed in the revisions, and I appreciate the doctor taking care of those. But I want to be sure, as you all are the technical advisors for the SPUD, that those are incorporated properly. Again, I want to thank everyone's time as we went through this process, but those are our concerns. Basically, the height is maintained, the character and culture of the neighborhood is maintained, and that there is a revision to the exterior, that it can be reviewed by an appropriate Oklahoma City, possibly the historical preservation, but that it can be maintained as it is, or as it is compatible with the neighborhood. So those are my concerns today. I appreciate your time. I know you've had a long afternoon, and thank you. And I haven't seen him in a while, but I got to say hello to Mike Wilson. Hope you're having a great time. And I appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. White. On your first item, the building height, the application in front of me does specify 35 feet as a restriction, so you're good there. On the
That's my concern, and that's what I stated in my letter. If we could specify the existing height as an elevation, that would be my preferred method. 35 feet is currently from the street level approximately 15 to 18 feet higher than any space on the building. So that is also my confusion.
I don't think that's correct, Mr. White. There is a portion of the building that reaches that height. That's why it was the number that was recited there. That's my understanding. Mr. Ledbetter, was
Yes,
that not your
also we've
understanding as
agreed
well?
to, it says in no event shall any building or property exceed 2 stories in height. And if I'm not mistaken, the municipal code also further states that properties adjacent to R zoning are limited to 25 feet, a certain distance from the property line. So everything on the west property is to be limited to 25 feet.
Okay, I just wanted to note that we shot it and it was less than 35 feet. So our surveyors took a shot at it, and it was less than 35 feet from the elevation of the street.
Yeah, well, standard C3 zoning does allow 35 feet.
That's not the point, Mr. Ledbetter.
Yeah, I understand.
We're doing an
That's why we had it.
SPUD. We're doing an SPUD here. I understood Dr. Bell to say very, very clearly, I do wish Scott Spradling were here today, to say very, very clearly that she wanted the height to be restricted to its current height.
Yes, that's the maximum building heights of 35 feet provided. However, the more restrictive requirements of the commercial district bulk standards applicable to the C3 district when abutting certain districts shall apply. And that's what I just mentioned.
But that's
In
not
no
it
event
either.
shall any building on the property exceed 2 stories in height.
Again, not the point. The point is that in the event of redevelopment of the property, the redeveloped building shall not exceed the height of the currently existing building. And I thought that was
We'll agree
very,
with
very
that.
clear.
It's not in the item 2, though. We'll agree to that.
Okay.
That was my understanding. Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. And the second item was that the square footage would remain the same if we're going to use the same number of parking spaces.
We agree.
We agree to that.
Mr. White, on your other 2 points, as it relates to the design, that's not before our body. Staff, can you confirm if this building is subject to design review? I'm pretty sure it is.
It is not.
Okay, so it is not subject to design review, period.
No.
Okay, if it's not, it's not. And then the character of the area, Mr. Ledbetter, I don't know how you want to try to address Mr. White's concern there, but you want to take a shot at that?
We're going to specify the percentage of brick materials. I think we increase that to 70%. And the existing character of the development should maintain the same.
Okay.
I would think that and I apologize for interrupting, but I would think that if the character of the building can be consistent with the adjoining property, I think you show it as a studio in the site plan, that would be sufficient for any of my concerns.
I think frankly, it would be better if it were consistent with the existing building rather than something adjoining. I mean, it might burn down too.
I would be very satisfied with that.
Good. And I had understood that was what Dr. Belt had agreed to. So okay. Dr. Belt has been very, very responsive to the concerns that were raised by surrounding property owners and just the neighborhood in general. She's been very, very amenable to these concerns, to addressing them and making sure they're actually part of the SPD.
Are there other issues we need to address here, Commissioner Powers?
Not that I'm aware of. Is there anyone else who signed up to speak?
I don't have anybody else signed up to speak, and I have no hands raised.
Well, then I'm ready to make a motion.
Let's do it.
I recommend approval of SPUD 1307 with the changes that I've read into the record and these assurances with respect to the overall character and height of the building remaining as they are in the event it's ever redeveloped. I'll be happy to provide staff with a written copy, which I'll actually email rather than think I'm going to hand to somebody, of the language that I read into the record.
Okay, if all information's been read in the record, I'm comfortable with that. I think that the intent would be, just as an amendment to the master design statement section 2 on building height, that the height shall be restricted to the existing height of the current structure. Is that the intent of your motion?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that sufficiently memorializes it for our purposes. So I'll take a second on Commissioner Powers' motion on PrimeGov when available.
Mr. Chair, this is Jeff. I wonder if on the height, at some point in the future, you never know what might happen. It might be best to actually document what the height is.
And that was the attempt, I think. So I don't know how we got off track on that. But yes, that was the intent. Scott Spradling had that same concern.
We're still waiting on PrimeGov, unfortunately.
Sorry, this is Paula. I'm waiting for clarification. Can you hold just a moment, please?
Sure.
What are they doing? So just to clarify, while we have time, when we're looking for that specificity on the on the elevation, we're looking for a above mean sea level elevation, or what?
We may have to have it shot, as Mr. White said, because the building is flat, but the property slopes away. So it's taller at some places than others, if that makes sense. But I think if we vote now with the idea that it'll be the existing height, we can provide that information between now and council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're ready to move forward.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Do you need that information again?
I do need the second to move in PrimeGov.
Okay.
Please.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Powers, and it's been seconded by Commissioner LaForge to recommend approval on SPUD 1307, subject to the amendments that Commissioner Powers read into the record and we articulated prior to the motion. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how will you vote, sir?
Yes.
Outstanding. All votes should be cast.
Commissioner Highsmith? Oh, I'm sorry, recused.
Yeah, he's recused. That application is approved. Next item on the agenda is item 19.
19 is
SPUD 1313.
application to rezone 1215 Northeast 34th Street from SPUD 739 in HNO district to SPUD 1313.
Applicant present. Applicant is Brian Prince. Looks like I have a hand raised here. Let's see what we got. Yep. If someone could move Mr. Prince, I'll see if I can unmute you here. There we go.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. Good afternoon, Mr. Prince. Start off by giving us your name and address for the record, okay?
I'm Brian Prince. The address is 1215 Northeast 34th.
Thank you very much. And tell us about your application.
Well, the application, I actually represent the Greater New Bethlehem Temple Church, and the application is for our community outreach building. We've served the community there for the last couple of years as we have been undergoing this process to create a group home. The building was originally a nursing home, and we are just wanting to help to serve our city and state by providing residential care for children in our DHS custody.
Okay. And Mr. Prince, are you aware of the technical evaluation that staff has included in our application?
I am aware, and we do agree with it.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Commissioner Pennington, this is your ward, sir, so I'll let you lead the discussion here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Strongly in support of this application. Love the fact that we're going to reuse an existing building, and obviously the mission of this facility couldn't be more important to our community. So I strongly support it.
Excellent. Any other commissioners have comments on this? I have nobody signed up to speak. Anybody with a hand raised? So if there's no further discussion, I think we're ready for that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that to recommend approval of SPUD 1313 to City Council.
I have a motion. I'll take a second. Climbed up when Paul makes that available for us. Sorry about that. That motion was seconded by Commissioner Clare, so I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1313. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote on this one, sir?
Yes, please.
I'm voting yes, but I do want the record to reflect that I move approval of the item, not Commissioner Highsmith. Although Commissioner
sorry again.
Credit, so I don't blame him for getting credit.
I'm trigger happy, I guess.
There we go. Okay, all votes should be yes.
Mr. Hinkle,
Yes, ma'am.
you vote yes?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
That application is approved. Next item on today's agenda is item number 20. It's SPUD 1314. Mr. Butler.
This is an application to rezone 101 Northwest 23rd Street from PUD 173 to SPUD 1314.
Is the applicant present?
Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the applicant. This is a SPUD for a small townhome development at the northwest corner of Sarah and 23rd, surrounded by mini storage on the north and west. And across the street is commercially zoned SPUD. To the south is a duplex development. And with this, we agree with the TEs 2, 3, and 4, requesting that we specify a certain amount. We agree to do that. We can discuss those now, or we can just agree to the TEs, however you would like to proceed on that.
Why don't you just give us a minimum amount and we'll specify that as a part of the TE.
Okay, TE2, we agreed to 10% of open space / landscape area. Okay. TE3, we agreed to 44 units maximum. TE4, we agreed to 1.5 spaces for a 2-bedroom and 2 spaces for a 3-bedroom.
Okay. Okay, I got it. Anything else we need to know?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah,
anything else we need to know, Mr. Grubbs?
I have no other comments. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Clare, this is your ward, sir.
Chairman, sorry. I just need to run for just one moment, so I'm going to step away.
Okay, no problem.
Those items that we just addressed kind of took care of any elements that I had. I did have one question related to, and I know it's just a graphic that's shown, but the drive off of Sarah that comes in, and you're bringing that in basically at the center of those units. Is there any reason that's not further north to create a little bit more separation from the intersection and also align with the drive on the north side of those units?
Because there's that angle that you see at the northeast corner of that is a driveway.
Okay.
That comes out for the mini storage. So just scooting it to separate from that.
Separate drive. Okay. All right. That's all I really had. So I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no further discussion.
I do not have anybody signed up to speak on this one. I do not see any hands raised. Since it's been a little while, I'll just mention if you do want to be heard on an item today, to raise your hand, you push *9 or Alt-Y on your computer. Any other commissioners have comments on this? If not, Commissioner Clare, I think we'll take your motion when you're ready to make it, sir.
Yeah, if no one has anything else, ready to make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1314 to City Council with the amended TEs as read into the record.
Okay. I have a motion. I'll take the second on PrimeGov. I have a second from Commissioner Power. So I have a motion, a second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1314, subject to the technical evaluations as amended and read into the record. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Okay. All votes should be cast, Paul. And that application is approved.
Thank you.
Item 21 was continued. So item 22, C7297 is our next item, Mr. Butler.
Final plat of Chisholm Springs, located north of Southeast 15th Street and east of South Morgan Road.
Good afternoon. This is Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll 300 Point Parkway Boulevard, representing the applicant. And this is a final plat that obviously conforms to the existing zoning as well as the preliminary plat. There are 3 TEs that are standard, and we're in agreement with those. I assume that it's not on the consent today because of a couple of protest letters that staff received. In reviewing those letters, I'll go ahead and address a couple points real quick. As was agreed to with the preliminary plat, the street stub that comes on the west that comes from the Stony Brook addition, we are connecting with that with an emergency access, so it will be gated, so it's not open to traffic. And then in regards to drainage, I'll just say that we're accepting all of the water from the west without impeding any flow. We're detaining the water and releasing it at the discharge point at a rate that's less than historic, and we're meeting all the city's drainage ordinance and criteria. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Commissioner Coffey's ward, and obviously she's not here. So I'll just jump out and say that with the variance, the design of the subdivision satisfies the requirements of the subdivision regulations and conforms to the design of the approved preliminary plat. The design is also in conformance with the requirements of PUD 1734 and PUD 1784. I got a couple of questions that I will ask Kendall. I guess I'll ask you on this. Apparently there were about 75 to 80 homes removed from the project from initially. Can you comment on that, or can you confirm whether or not that's accurate?
Sure, they're not removed, but those 74 lots are on the far east side, and that will just be part of the phase 2 plat.
Got it. So they extend further over where that kind of property boundary is?
There's one more street on the far east side that runs north and south. So that will be part of phase 2 to complete the project. Understood completely.
The PUD states that it will be maintained, basically the common areas will be maintained by the HOA. So the developer will be in control of that HOA for quite some time as a result of, construction and transitioning these homes to other folks. So they're agreeing to maintain responsibility for maintaining those areas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then there was an 8-foot fence that was committed to be built on the north and west sides. That 8-foot fence, nothing's changed about that because the record stipulated that and when we did the zoning piece. So
Your understanding is that's been memorialized, correct?
I believe so, yes. So we'll, like I say, especially, I believe that was part of the PUD requirements, and certainly we're conforming to everything in the PUD. Okay.
And then lastly, there was I hadn't heard anything about this, and so I thought it was an interesting question that was submitted to me. What happened to the storm shelter? There was supposed to be a storm shelter that I think was memorialized in the original zoning, which would have been PUD
1734.
Thank you.
And
is that still being built?
Yes. Lot 1 on the far south, at least it's my understanding, it's the far southwest corner.
I think I actually see it where the connecting street goes over.
That's correct.
Yeah, I see it. I love how I just raised my hand like I was going to show everybody on the map where it was. Is that it?
Right. They're in the far southwest corner, lot 1.
There you go. Okay, perfect. All right. I don't have any other questions on this. It's very straightforward because it's a final plat. I do have somebody I think signed up to speak on it. So I will ask them, but first of all, any other comments from commissioners on this one? Okay, hearing none. Catherine Davidson, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Tell us what you want us to know about this application.
I guess my biggest, we've been fighting this for a long time, since 2019. So the developer has had to make a lot of changes to this, and I just want to make sure that, and I guess not knowing the process would be wondering, who guarantees that if he cuts down a healthy tree, he's going to replace it caliper for caliper. The other item that is consistently bothering me is the fact that it keeps referring to an HOA. And I know in previous commission meetings, we have talked about the type of property this is, and you'd say you don't care, but the issue would be is that these are rent to own homes. Nobody will actually own these homes for at least 15 years, if not longer. And so there is no HOA.
Well,
so I didn't know.
No, there is.
Yeah, there is. It's just that the developer controls it. And that's how every housing addition actually works, is until whatever's laid out in the CC&Rs, the codes, covenants, and restrictions, until a certain threshold is exceeded by owners, then the developer is responsible for maintaining the HOA. So they are effectively the HOA. So the short answer is, on that front, he's the HOA, the developer's the HOA. On the other question you asked, the answer would be the items that were memorialized into the zoning document for the two PUDs will continue to exist and run with this land unless and until they are rezoned or changed or modified through the zoning process. And so if you believe that something in this development is not in compliance, your call there would be to the Action Center to make a code enforcement report that a zoning violation is being committed. That would be the process you could take. The things that are memorialized into the plat, those are covenants that run with the land. Anybody who takes title of the land after that is subjected to those same requirements that are outlined in the plat notes, etc. So they don't go away, but there is a never-ending onerous on the people that surround any property that they are welcome to report any violation of zoning notice, or I'm sorry, notice of zoning violations to the city, so they can be properly inspected by code enforcement. Anybody have anything they want to add to that, staff, that I missed or said wrong? Okay. Ms. Davidson, any other comments or questions?
No, thank you very much.
Sure. I also had Tiffany King. Ms. King, are you with us? Be *6 or spacebar. I have a phone number, so I can't tell if that might be you, but.
we'll give you a minute. It's *6 on your phone if you want to unmute, or it is the *6 or space bar. So while we pause, I'll just ask if there's any commissioner comments on anything, or commissioner, is anybody prepared to make a motion in Commissioner Coffey's absence? Somebody, anybody?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move approval of C7297.
Okay, I have a motion, and I'll take the second on PrimeGov to approve the final plat of Chisholm Springs, C7297.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I thought we were waiting to see if someone else had
No, no one had. I've been staring at it. No one's.
Okay,
Oh, there we go.
okay.
Hold on, I just got one. This is from a different person, Jerry Snard. Mr. Snard, can you hear me?
Let me unmute myself.
You're
Can you
on.
hear me?
You're good.
Can you hear me
Uh-huh, we
now?
can hear you. Yep.
Okay. I've been involved in this thing since day one. Actually late day one at the hotel meetings. My question is, just even at your last meeting, when you all had the builder and the attorney up there, you were dealing with this last 20 acres, this industrial area. The 20 acres was landlocked. And you and Commissioner Highsmith both went back and forth. What do we do with this 20 acres? It's landlocked. They can't get in and out. Well, now you can. Because he removed 320 feet by 1,980 feet that he says it's going to be phase 2. Well, when is going to be phase 2? Do we know that? But that 20 acres is no longer landlocked. And that was your whole reason for approving that 20 acres, is because there was no way for anybody to get in and out of there. You both sat there and said, what do we do? Well, now it's not landlocked.
Well, Mr. Snard, I appreciate the thought behind your comment, but that's not exactly the way that works. And the property is zoned. Developers have the right to schedule when they want to phase construction and how quickly they want to build. That's not a timetable that we set for them or we dictate to them. So if they've broken this into 2 phases for whatever reason, that is certainly their prerogative to do it. It doesn't change anything about what that property can be used for. It's still subject to the same PUD, and it's still subject to the same preliminary plat they presented it. They're just not bringing that portion through for final plat. Could be a variety of reasons for that, but those are not particularly relevant to us as it relates to deciding whether or not this final plat conforms to subdivision regulations.
This is actually the third plat. It was 1734. The lower 40 acres was done. And then a year later.
Wait, that's not a plat, Mr. Sinard. That's a PUD. So that's a
PUD.
zoning.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not a real estate attorney, so
That's
bear with
okay.
me.
We've had 2 PUDs that zone the property into the use of R1 single family. Essentially, those were the base of those 2 PUDs, and then the preliminary plat came through, and then this is the final plat.
Now, I have one other question. You addressed one of those earlier, which I'm glad you did, about the Sundrop Place now going to be a crash gate. Well, I live in property number 4 on the east side. I live 6 inches from this property. I have for 25 years. If you look at his property number 8, well, all along from Sundrop Place, which is on the far east side where the crash gate is, all the way south to 15th Street, where does that water go? You can ask the person that, because right now Sundrop Place is the drain for Sunnybrook Addition. We have no storm drains, none whatsoever, not even one. All of our water drains into that field. So Sundrop Place drains half of Sunnybrook down into Sundrop Place, and it drains into that field. Well, where's it going to go once that's blocked? Can he tell us?
The crash gate isn't going to block water.
Where's that water going to go? I'm looking at the map. I see no place for it to go.
Well, you're looking at the map, but you're looking at the plat.
I'm sorry. It's going to go into,
Just a second, Mr. Sinnard. There we go. Mr. Dillon, now that the plat is up, could you explain to Mr. Sinnard the item shown as the common area E that extends at the end of Sundrop Place there, and then the way that your water design is for the final plat?
Yes, sir. You're correct. There's about 12 acres that drains through the Sunnybrook addition down Sundrop Place. That, in essence, there will be a gate that will not impede flow. That street will be private, but that street will extend over to the east to Chisholm Springs Boulevard that you see on the map. Just before or at the intersection, before it gets to Chisholm Springs, there's a storm sewer that we're placing in. And that storm sewer goes down Chisholm Springs Boulevard about one lot, and then it goes east that you can see the drainage easement on the map into common area, I believe it's B there, and that is a detention facility. And so there's a chain of 3 detention ponds that are in those common areas, and it conveys the water from the west back over to the middle of the site, and then it discharges down to Southwest 15th Street. So again, we're not impeding any flow. All of that water that comes through and down Sundrop is being collected, and it's put in a storm sewer, then it's detained and released down there Southwest 15th Street. And then I might also mention in regards to the 20 acres, 3/4 of that 20-acre tract is part of this plat. So it's just a piece of the original 40 on the east and a piece on the 20 acres on the east is all that's left for phase 2.
The 20 acres was just approved a couple months ago because it was an industrial zone. It was just approved because it was landlocked, and it's never been mentioned in this development until just recently. He added 75 homes in December, but all along it's just been the lower 40 acres. Then in December of 2020, he added the upper 20 acres and added 75 more homes. Every time we go to a commission meeting or a council meeting, these maps change. And
there's development going on out there.
But we're concerned about living here. Like I say, we have for 25 years. We used to get water, the field before the farmer rearranged it. The water, because there's so much of it that comes out of Sunnybrook, came up into our backyard. We measured Monday, it was 13 feet. But we got the farmer to rearrange his farming a little bit and kind of built a dam up along there. But we know how the water stands out there. Commissioner Coffey has iterated quite eloquently. She's driven by and sat there and watched the water watch this area turn into a lake. Now I have one more question for not the commission, but the other fellow.
You need to direct your questions to the commission, Mr. Sinnard.
Okay, to the commission. On the southeast corner, where does that water go? And there's a retention pond or detention pond. Where does that water go?
The southeast portion of what we're seeing on our screen, just to confirm, which would be common area D.
That's exactly the far southeast corner. Where does that water go?
Okay.
When that retention pond overflows?
Mr. Dillon?
There's an existing drainage channel that's on the north side of 15th Street that conveys all of that water to Mustang Creek. So that's our historic discharge from our site. That's where we detain and we're releasing to that drainage channel.
Are you aware it goes across 3 property owners' property?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pogue, Mr. Bohannon, lawyer Bohannon, and another investment company they all show up right there at that corner. So they're going to dump that water into all 3 of those people's property. Have you got permission to do that? I talked to Mr. Pogue yesterday and he says you don't have his permission.
Mr. Sinnard, if there's an issue between 2 private property owners, unfortunately for us, that's not what we're here to adjudicate. And that's not for us to concern ourselves with as a commission or in the context of these meetings. So, Mr. Dillon, there's no reason to answer the question. The plat as we see it is the only concern. We have to limit ourselves. To your point about changing maps, each part of this process is going to contain a different map because it's going to contain a different topic.
So when you talk about the PUD, it's going to be the entirety of the tract that the owner's rezoning. And then as they come in and they plat sections, you're going to see a different map. And they're going to change because through this process, they're working with staff, they're working through engineers like Mr. Dillon to make alterations to ensure that the subdivision regulations can be met and adhered to. And so, yeah, they're going to change from time to time. That's part of the process. But at each iteration of that, it's assured that those changes are in compliance with our ordinances. And as I said, we're told here that they are.
Question. Across the
Mr.
bottom.
Dillon,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Dillon, can I ask a question of you? Just, I thought I understood you to say that after detention, discharge would be less than historic rates. Is that
That's correct.
accurate?
That is
Okay,
correct.
thank you. Thank you.
Good luck. Anyway, like I say, we've lived there 25 years and we know how much water comes out of there. But I had one more question. Now got interrupted and lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just think there's a lot of things that the folks that aren't here that don't know that all of Morgan Road from Southwest 8th all drains into let's call it the project's property. You'll see the little dip down at the bottom. There's 2 drainage facilities there where all that water comes out there. Morgan Road and Southwest 15th have an underground drainage right there, and they all exit at the bottom of the south end of this project. So there's more water. All of Morgan Road from 8th Street to 15th Street comes out at the south end of that property. You're talking about massive amounts of water. We've stood there and watched it. Like I say, I've lived here for 25 years. I've watched the flooding. We know that water, if it comes over the curb, is going to go into Mr. Pogue's oil field company and flood his 60 acres. He knows it. He says, he told me yesterday, don't worry about it. The water people will take care of it. That was my other question. Across the bottom of the page of this plat, there are circles where people have signed off on. We've noticed nothing that the water folks have signed off on yet. Just there's like 6 circles at the bottom. There's only a couple of things where the surveyors have signed off on those type of things. Have the water people looked at this yet? Do you know?
Our Public Works Department? Yeah,
They haven't
yes,
stamped off on it.
Yes, Mr. Sinnard, that Public Works has looked at this application, and we're told in our staff report that they don't have any concerns.
Great. All right. That's all I had. Thank you very much. And by the way, my nephew said he went to school with you. He's an attorney in St. Louis, and he said, tell you hello.
His name is?
Stuart Keening.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
We appreciate y'all. Believe me. I get a little agitated, but if you live here, it's different if you live here. Have a good day. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Sinnard. We appreciate you being with us.
You bet.
Okay, we had a motion on the floor, which we didn't take a second on. So as a matter of protocol, if you would, Commissioner Pennington, could you remake that motion, please, if you wish to do so?
Yes, sir. I move approval of C-7297.
Okay, I have a motion to approve C-7297, and it's been seconded by Commissioner Powers, so please cast your votes. And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes should be cast, Paula.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna step away for just a moment. I've already voted. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Commissioner LaForge, and that application has passed. Next item on today's agenda, item 23 was continued, so we are to our final item for separate consideration, which is item 24.
Yes, this is an ordinance for public hearing and recommendation amending Chapter 59 Zoning and Planning Code, Article 2 Definitions, Section 592150.2 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code, pertaining to general definitions by providing the definition of dwelling to include manufactured homes, modular homes, mobile homes, and house trailers. I believe JJ is going to give us a little bit of information about this.
JJ?
looking for him.
He gone. I don't see him.
Yeah, I don't see him either.
Dan, did you work with JJ on this?
Susan Randall submitted a memorandum to us on the subject of this proposed amendment. So I know that she signed in.
Yes, Susan Randall is asking to be unmuted.
Oh,
I'm not, she's wanting to speak, but I see her on here.
Yeah, she's not muted. I wonder if she is somehow muted herself.
She's raised her hand.
you know what? Here, I'll promote her to panelist.
Okay.
Yeah, she had that issue last week.
So she's in. I'll ask to unmute. Okay, Susan, you should be live here.
Okay, I was just here in case you have any questions on it. This is the same ordinance that you had seen before, which is trying to expand the definition of dwelling to include manufactured homes, modular homes, mobile homes, and house trailers. I know that you all have recommended that you want to delete house trailers, which I think we can do, so that you would make that in your recommendation to include that amendment. Travel trailers are still exempt. And on the memo, I just kind of went through and identified all the different provisions of the code where the word dwelling appeared. And those are the ones that I listed you. So that would also now apply to manufactured homes.
Okay. Susan, I appreciated the memo. It was very helpful for me in just summarizing this quickly, what the issue was and what was changing and what wasn't changing. There was also some discussion when we visited as a commission about this last time, about whether or not this would affect other areas of the code outside of zoning. And as Susan's memo points out, it does not. Any questions on this from commissioners?
Yeah, I apologize. This is Commissioner Highsmith. I think I missed the initial discussion on this. I'm just curious for my own clarification what the difference between a mobile home and a house trailer is.
We figured out that one of them is defined by the code, as I recall, and one is not. And so because house trailer wasn't defined by the code, we opted to strike it to prevent any kind of ambiguity over what that term might mean. That's my recollection. Does anybody remember that differently? Okay. So at any rate, all this does, Commissioner Highsmith, is alter the general definition of dwelling in 59-2150.2. And it basically it goes from excluding manufactured homes, mobile homes, to including those as dwellings as defined. And the purpose was to ensure the same protections for those folks that are afforded to single family and multifamily residents. That's the idea.
Yeah, and that was my understanding. I was just curious about the mobile, what was it? The
house trailer.
Trailer. Yeah, house trailer language. That's all.
I wish I could give attribution to the person who mentioned it. I don't remember if it was Kamal or somebody, but we figured out that it wasn't a defined term under the code, so we opted just to strike it. So if there's no other comments, what we need to do is make a recommendation to City Council. I'm certainly supportive of the application, and I think recommending it with amending and deleting the term house trailers formally in our recommendation is probably the best way to go about it. Is there any objection to that? I don't have anybody
None, and
signed up to
also
speak.
move.
Okay, good enough for me. I've got a motion from Commissioner Powers to recommend approval to City Council, subject to the change of deleting the term house trailers. It's been seconded by Commissioner Highsmith, so please cast your vote when available.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Hinkle. He's voted in the affirmative. All votes should be cast. And this ordinance is recommended for approval to City Council, subject to our amendment. That's the last item on the agenda today for separate consideration. The remaining items have been continued to future meetings.
which brings us to our additional items. There are currently no planning commission committees, as I recall. So planning commission members, Commissioner Claire,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Powers,
No.
Commissioner Coffey is not with us today. So Commissioner Privet,
Nada.
Commissioner Hinkle,
Enthusiastically not.
okay, Commissioner Highsmith.
Good game, everybody.
Commissioner Pennington.
Just one quick personal announcement. I got engaged on Mother's Day, and I just wanted my good friends on the commission to know that.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
That's wonderful.
Who was silly enough to say yes to you?
I know. Hey, I'm still quick and still witty, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Congratulations, man. That's wonderful.
We're all going to be in your wedding party, right?
Yeah.
That went without saying, Commissioner.
Virtually.
That went without saying.
Virtually.
You're enthusiastically.
Yeah. You'll have to pick who can go, so we don't have a quorum now. Commissioner Pennington, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, Commissioner LaForge.
Nothing. Thanks.
Okay, nothing for me. Planning department, Jeff, you sent bylaws out. You want to comment on those or any other items for planning department?
Yes, so the bylaws, please do take a look at those, and we will put them on the agenda for next meeting. If you have any questions, what we try to do is track changes that were made since our last meeting, and highlighted a couple things that were discussed, like, oh, I think there was one about how long we let people talk, and I made a comment about that. So let me know if you have any questions. So there's that. And also we will be planning department will be hosting a meeting on June 10th with the school districts. This is our first of those annual meetings. You should have received an email, I think it was during the meeting, from Kim Cooperhart about that. So in addition to being worried about quorum at Mr. Pennington's wedding, we also have to be worried about quorum at this too. So if you would like to attend, please let us know, and we'll just want to kind of manage the quorum issue.
If I can be so bold, I would say it would probably be my preference if the commissioners who participated in the committee wanted to attend. That would be who I would encourage to attend. I think the real only reason I say that is because I think at this first one, what we're trying to make sure happens is that what we sought to accomplish gets accomplished. So the feedback you got from your district leaders and your respective wards, I think it would be important that if you can be there, that you are. If you can't be there, certainly we'd want to make that spot available to other commissioners. So certainly let me know if you can't make it. If you're not going to attend, that would be Commissioner Privet, Commissioner Hinkle, and Commissioner Coffey. If nobody can make it, then we'll extend an invitation for somebody else to join. But let's see where we start there. Does that seem fair and reasonable to everybody else? Just trying to come up with a solution. Okay. So anything else, Jeff?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you sending those bylaws out and your work on that. We're going to bring that to a conclusion. Also, development services. I know JJ's gone. So I'll just comment briefly. Did everybody see the memo that Bob Teener sent out to us regarding the code enforcement issue on Hassett Street?
Yes, it helped me a bunch understand what was going on there.
Kamal, I saw you shaking your head no. I'm trying to remember. I will see who sent this to me, but staff, could somebody recirculate that memo? I thought it was super helpful.
I sent that out, so I'll track it.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay.
I'll make sure that we get it to Commissioner Pennington.
Yeah, or if anybody else didn't get it, let Jeff know, because I think it was pretty eye-opening for me to see how much work the city put in on that issue is pretty incredible. So I really appreciated that.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, what I recall about that, we had a lot of questions about that particular one. And I found the memo very, very helpful as well. But I think there was also some sort of more generalized discussion amongst the commissioners about wanting to know more about just how code enforcement really works and, you know, that kind of thing. I'm not sure that the memo answered all of that, but I agree. I found it also very, very helpful.
This is way outside of my pay grade, but I think it's just really pushing the city to make code enforcement maybe a little bit more of a higher financial priority. I was going to talk to a couple people about that. One of the things they tell you, if you ever study like graffiti, is that the faster you cover up the graffiti, the less of a chance there is that it comes back. And it's because they're having to do all this work. And so if the next day you're covering it up, they're going to go somewhere else. I think it's the same way. I think the more, you know, sort of impactful our code enforcement can be, the less likely it is that people will try to take advantage of it. The way it at least seems from the memo we received occurred on Hassett Street. It's pretty debilitating to know that it takes that long to get something accomplished, in my opinion. So
it is. And I think there also is, I remember a number of years ago, I think it was at one of our, it may have been at the ACOG thing. Can't remember exactly what the forum was, but the code enforcement head from Edmond came to speak to us. And I was really taken with his, of course, Edmond's a little bit smaller place in Oklahoma City, so you got to factor that in. But, you know, their approach really being not enforcement, but compliance. And so, you know, sort of the approach that they take, especially to residential, I think, code enforcement problems is a little different. So and I'm not saying we're doing it wrong and they're doing it right. I don't mean that at all. I think it would just help us all if we knew a little bit more about it, you know? I hate to tell people like we had to do today that your solution to that problem is to call the Action Center. You know, that's just not a very satisfying, it certainly isn't something I would want to hear if I had a problem, but it's also just not a very satisfying thing to be left with to tell people when I don't really understand exactly what happens after you make that call. I don't understand enough about the system itself to feel good about it.
You know, one thing I'll say, Commissioner Powers, kind of a shameless plug for the city here. So if you've ever used the OKC Connect app on your phone, it's actually fairly impressive. I wish more citizens knew about it. It's kind of like the comments about, you know, what do we do if this guy, while he develops, is violating the covenants, you know, and the terms of the zoning ordinance? Well, you can go on your phone to the OKC Connect app and you can go in and you can take a picture, you can upload a picture, you can submit information, tells you when someone went out and where it is in the process. And I report stuff through here all the time. I'm like the grouchy neighbor. I report stuff all the time, abandoned or unsecured buildings or, you know, all kinds of stuff, overgrown weeds. And it's great because you get responses fairly quickly. And I think that's encouraging, but I don't think enough people know about using this. So they call the Action Center. And I agree that it doesn't feel good, but 621 square miles.
I had no idea about the app.
I tell everybody.
I might need a little coaching on how to do it, but I think that's a great idea.
Tell everybody I know about that app. It's pretty good.
It's awesome. I mean, and it's super simple. Anyway,
a little clunky, but it works.
A little clunky, but it works. Yep.
Works good.
Maybe next time we all get together, Chad Davidson could come do a Q&A with us. He's sharp kitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, if in talking to Bob Teener about this, you know, he did offer, you know, if you have additional questions, you know, they can come back, and I don't know if you would want it to be in a normal planning commission meeting or some other setting, but you know, they're happy to talk, because I know that last time when we talked about it, there were general questions like, you know, well, you know, why do we hear this from people? Like, you know, I've been doing this for years, and you know, it became clear when looking at what they sent in the memo on that specific example. Well, you know, they get compliance and then the problem rises again, and it happens over and over again, et cetera, et cetera. But there are other, you know, I'm not in development services, but, you know, I understand there are lots of legal challenges as well. But yeah, I'm happy to, and they are happy to come and speak with you all about it if that's what you would like. But what would be your preference in terms of settings?
I'll tell you, my vote would be find an agenda where we have a relatively short one, at least the way it looks, and have them pop in. I mean, you guys see the agenda before we do, so take a look at one where we're not going to be there until 5 o'clock, and everybody's got a little energy left, and let's get them in here and let them talk to us. And I think that probably would be my preference over trying to schedule a study session or something.
Okay, sounds good. We will communicate with them. And Commissioner Powers, I would say from what I've heard, I think we have a similar approach. I mean, what everybody wants is compliance. So I'll ask him about to kind of address the approach and also just kind of how a typical system or how a typical complaint works, but also what can go wrong, and get back.
Great. That'd be great, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Last but certainly not least, Municipal Counselor's Office. Dan Brummett, are you still on the call?
Sir.
Would you mind just sharing, you sent me an email dated April the 15th. And would you mind just explaining the genesis of that email and kind of what happened in that case, just so everybody kind of is aware of that?
What happened in the case was that there was a negotiation on, I'm not sure exactly what form it came up in, but it was similar to a negotiation on use, but there wasn't anything on the agenda about it. So the Supreme Court said that it violated the Open Records Act, Open Meeting Act. So that if somebody comes before the commission and say they're negotiating a use and they come up with a use that's not listed in the staff report, people don't have notice of that, and so it can be a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Got it.
You have to be very careful about what you do about adding uses in a meeting, an open meeting, that are not included in the staff report.
Got it.
Oh, I'd love to see that, Daniel. That's important to keep in mind. Would you send me a copy of it also?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else, Mr. Brummett?
No, sir.
Okay. That's all we have. I'll just check quickly. There's citizens to be heard. I don't have another hand raised, and I don't think Marilyn Lamensdorf wants to be heard. So if there's no further discussion on this or no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Take a second.
Claire, second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks, guys. Everybody have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.